Members of the public and the press, officers, staff, welcome to this meeting of the Daventry District Council on the 23rd of February 2017. A couple of housekeeping notices. We're not expecting a fire alarm practice, so if the alarm does go off, please escape by the nearest possible exit. I'm going that way, so don't bother to go that way because I'm going to shut the door behind me. But by the way you came in. The meeting is being recorded in accordance with our usual practice, and I would ask you all please to silence your mobile devices. I know mine went off last time, but I did pay. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Canon Michael Webber, please, will you lead us in our prayer?
O God our Father, we pray for this council tonight as it discusses council tax and the support of services in this district. We pray that there may be a more effective partnership between central government and the different branches of local government. We pray also tonight for those who work in our emergency services, including the police, fire crews, ambulance staff and council staff, and for all those who have been injured today in the storm. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Minutes of the previous council meeting held on the 8th of December. Before I sign, can I ask for confirmation of any corrections or observations?
It's a couple of amendments, Chairman. On page 5, minute reference CH316 Craig, Sarah's correct title is the resident and Sarah Brown. On page 13, in the second paragraph, just a typo, it states that it's costing the gain of £100,000 and should be due to cost of improvement.
Thank you. With those amendments, is it your wish that I sign these minutes as an accurate record?
Agreed.
Thank you. I'll try and do that. Do we have any apologies for absence, please?
Councillors Colin Morgan, Johnny Amos, Nick Bunting, Theo Lurton-Swift, Ian Robertson, Mike Warren, Nigel Carr and Mark Wilson.
Oh, thank you. Declaration of members' interest. Any members with... Sorry?
Councillor Lurton-Swift, was you mentioned your...
Yes. Yeah. To receive declaration of members' disclosure of interest and the nature of any such interest in the following items, now or at the time if it should occur to you that we should declare such. We come to Chairman's announcements. I have it in accordance with usual practice circulated a list of the events that I've been attending recently on behalf of the district. Quite a lot of carol singing, of course. A good visit to Lamport, all a quite interesting Holocaust Memorial Day, and I got a good view of the Errol Flynn Cinema in Northampton, which is timely because we're now asking for public view on a similar development in Daventry. Coming up, there are a number of things. A couple of things I want to mention to draw your attention to in particular. On March the 16th, we're holding a cake and bake sale in aid of the charity, the Farming Community Network. That will be downstairs in the community hall. And I have asked that there should be some bread from the old bakehouse in Yelverton, which the bread's not old, it's the bakehouse, you understand. And the other thing, of course, is that tomorrow night we have my charity concert at Yelverton Village Hall. I do still have some tickets if anybody would like to come. You can buy a ticket even if you don't want to come. You want tickets to support the charity. We've got some very important decisions to make this evening, and I hope that we can look forward to a positive debate because that will make the decisions more meaningful. And just before we move on, Councillor Miller, I believe you wish to have a few words.
So much indeed, Chairman. It's with regret actually I have to announce today that one of our councillors will be standing down in May. This particular council has been on this council since 2003. And it's for her to actually say the reasons why she's standing down, but I just want to say a few words about Councillor Dan Osborne, who's stepping down in May. Because Councillor Dan Osborne, as many will know, certainly speaks her mind when she wants to. Very forthright, but she's been a great member of our team actually. I'm very sorry to see Diana stepping down. She's had a number of health issues as members are aware over many years. I've always admired her bravery in the face of those issues. So I want to say on behalf of the council, we're very sorry to see you. She's still here for a few months though. You make your presence felt while you're still here, Diana. This is her last council meeting, so I just want to put on the record. It's been a real privilege for me as a leader to have Diana in my team. I've always valued her input, and always behind the scenes she's very, very vocal about things, which is good, but also she can be vocal on the public arena as well, which is also good, but she's a great representative of the people she represents. And in Long Butley Ward, she's always been a great advocate, and I do appreciate that as a fellow ward member. So on behalf of the council, I just hope you can say a few words to say thank you much indeed, Diana, for your time, which is actually 14 years. It's amazing how time flies on. You've been on this council, you still look as young as you were when you first came. So well done on that, Diana, and I wish you all the very best moving forward. Thank you.
I'm sure we all echo those sentiments. Thank you, Councillor Miller. We move on to item 6, questions under Council Procedure Rules 10. Questions from members of the public, if any. I believe we do have some questions. The first one that comes to hand is from Barry Mansell and Sarah Seymour. Are they here? No. Does that mean I've ever right. It's a very long question, but it's concerning the state of the roads in Cowper Road, Headlands and Daventry. It's a request that the leader should instruct officers to support our request for the construction of parking bays on the wide grass verges of Cowper Road, and that's basically what they want. They notice that people are using communal concrete ramps and are willing to repair them, but are they allowed to do that? They had an email message stating that no one is to do anything. I'm summarising this because all members of the council and officers have a copy in front of them. We would like to know why Cowper Road wasn't resurfaced when the rest of the Headlands estate was done. The road is a disgrace. The potholes have been repaired several times, but we feel this really does need to be done correctly. If this was to be done, the parking bays could be constructed at the same time. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to first of all thank Mr. Mansell and Sarah Mansell, was it? Seymour, my apologies, because it wasn't on my list there. I also want to say, I want to thank both those individuals for their kind words about our former councillor, Councillor Long, who represented that area before last May. As the question acknowledges, Cowper Road is a highway maintained by North Hampshire County Council as the local highway authority. This includes footways and verges. For that reason, I cannot offer any explanation why Cowper Road was not resurfaced. It's not in our remit, so I don't understand why. That question would need to be directed to North Hampshire County Council. I suggest they do that for one of the county councils, or just go directly to the county and ask the question. Likewise, any works to the road would be illegal if not done by or with the agreement of North Hampshire County Council. This includes any changes to the verges. Our views as Daventry District Council are of little account. Clearly, at the end of the day, this is a decision for the County Council to make. And obviously, Councillor Long did do his best as acknowledged in the preamble to this question. Finally, I suspect that NCC would not contemplate granting private rights to use the new parking bays. But again, this is a question which they would need to be taken up with the County Council. So we're not in a position really to help in that sense, but we offer that advice. I advise both Mr. Mansell and Sarah Seymour to contact the County Council, and I do understand the residents' frustration because it seems to go on for quite a long time. And it would be sensible for such matters to be controlled more locally, but this is a situation as things currently stand, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Presumably the questioners will be sent a copy of that response.
Chairman, it will be recorded in the minutes and the minutes will be available to record.
Thank you. Did you want to raise a query about that answer?
I understand, Chair, that councils are within the Constitution. We are allowed not to obviously follow up with debate on any question that has been put, but suggest that it might be referred to an appropriate committee for discussion. If that is the case, I would like to suggest that the bones of this question, which is a long and complicated one,
yes,
and I know that the people involved have been in contact with the County Council, and I feel that because of that, I just feel that there's somewhere else that, given that they put so much effort into bringing this to this meeting, that the question should go somewhere else for a little bit more discussion about what, if anything, Daventry District Council can do.
thank you. Yes, I'll ask the monitoring officer to respond to that.
Yes, Chairman. There is an ability in the Constitution, as said, for automatic reference to a committee as something that's within the remit of one of our committees. However, what's been illustrated is not actually within our remit, it's not the County Council. I think the important point to be made here as a council body as a whole, there can't be anything more powerful than that. There's a case of then taking it forward through the County Council channel as was discussed. This isn't strictly within our remit.
Thank you. That would have been my understanding. We don't have an appropriate committee to refer this to because it's not something that we deal with. Thank you. We move on to a question from Alan Brown and also a question from Kate Campbell. Are they here? I'm going to suggest that we take these two questions together since they both refer to Middlemore Estate. I think that would make... you will get a proper answer, but it's just to make sure that we can say. So could I ask Alan Brown to read his question, please?
Yes. I'm Alan Brown and I'm a resident of Middlemore. I live on 5 Brampton Grange Drive, which is literally 100 metres from the area of concern that my question is about. And I'm actually seeking clarification regarding the bus-only exit that leaves Farnborough Drive, exiting into the Heartlands Industrial Park. The most recent feedback I am aware of regarding this matter is that District Council awaits drawings from Northamptonshire County Council Highways to show how widening of the road may be achieved. The bus link consultation outcome, as you all will be very much aware, was that 95.6% of responders were in favour of the bus link being adapted for general use of residents. Middlemore roads are becoming increasingly dangerous having only one exit in and out of the estate makes the situation worse. We currently have 776 dwellings on the estate, with planning permission in the pipeline for a retirement village that has 315 dwellings and an 83-bed care home. Don't you agree that if the exit is not widened, the traffic situation is simply going to get worse?
Thank you very much.
May I read the second letter, because the person who wrote it is indisposed, which is one from Kate Campbell.
Yes, thank you. That would be
because
helpful.
it's on the same issue, Chair. Thank you. It's Kate Campbell, who is the chair of the Middlemore Residents Association. She wishes to express the increasing frustration of Middlemore residents regarding how long the path and road resurfacing completion works are taking place to be completed. We were advised by Councillor Chris Long in May 2016 that the predicted completion date was April 2017. Our secretary has been in touch with your engineer, Carly Razak, who has advised he is awaiting news from NCC as they had spent the monies allocated so far. Please can you advise that there is sufficient budget to complete the works required, and if so, when these works might be finally completed?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to first of all thank Alan Brown and Kate Campbell for their questions. I'm going to try and do the two together because they're sort of similarly linked in many ways, Chairman. And the development of Middlemore has taken longer than was originally expected, largely because of the global recession of 2008, Chairman, and its after effects, which meant that housing development was delayed. However, the area is now approaching completion in response to your questions, and accordingly the Council agreed with NCC, Northamptonshire County Council's local highway authority, a package of works to complete most of the main roads. This will enable them to be adopted by NCC as public highway. NCC is working for its contractor, Kier WSP. Regrettably, the service provided by NCC's team has been slower than projected. And I do understand local frustrations on that, so I'm fully behind that. But again, as we're not the authority involved, we can only try and lobby, and I'm sure your councillors will do that on your behalf. But the point here is that it has been slower than projected, and works to complete the roads and paths ready for adoption will not now be completed until the next financial year, which starts actually on the 1st of April, but not far away. The NCC has also identified additional works it believes are required to make the roads and paths suitable for adoption, and I think that's important for safety reasons as well. Despite that, it is likely the budget DDC has allocated will be sufficient for those completion works, so the budget's in place. There are also two additional pieces of work which DDC has asked to be designed and priced. These are the widening of the entrance to the estate from the A361, so that stop buses do not prevent other vehicles from passing, and widening the busway between Middlemore and Hartlands to make it suitable for use by all traffic. This is the approach suggested in your question, Mr. Brown. The first of these pieces of work would really need to be done by NCC because it is so closely linked to the finishing works already undertaken. The second would be sensible for NCC to do, but only if delivery and cost is satisfactory from their point of view. NCC has been asked to provide prices for both pieces of work, so DDC can take decisions on them, but despite prompting these, have not been forthcoming yet. So we are pushing that hard to get that information. Obviously, the Council is sympathetic to these extra pieces of work being done, otherwise we would not have asked for prices for them. So we are actually following this up on your behalf as residents. However, it cannot take a decision on them until the costs are known. So we're waiting for that information to come forward. I appreciate these answers are less detailed than maybe yourself, Mr. Brown, and Ms. Campbell would have wished. We're trying to be honest here about the reality of where we are. And that the slowness of progress is frustrating for all of us concerned, because obviously we want to see this done as soon as it can be done. However, as NCC is the local highway authority, DDC is very much in their hands, so that's the point we face. But we are pushing from our end to try and make sure these works get done. We will continue to press for progress, and it is my hope that these works could be done by the end of the 2017-18 financial year, which is by the end of March next year, 2018. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. That's the end of questions from members of the public. To answer questions from members of the council, if any, Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. My question is to the Leader of the Council. And I ask whether he is aware that there have been complaints from tenants of the Daventry Estate Company Limited over inadequate maintenance and proposals for large rent increases. That although TDECL's website claims that its aim is to provide a first-class experience to other tenants, some tenants are considering seeking alternative accommodation because of TDECL's failure to attend to repairs in a timely fashion, and because of rental increases which put properties beyond their budgets. And that one tenant, having had a rent increase of 6.7% on the 1st of April 2016, has now been advised that a further increase of 9.4% on the 1st of May 2017 has been proposed. That will result in a total of 16.7% in just 13 months. Will the Leader of the Council agree to investigate these issues and report back to the Council? Given that TDECL is a company owned by and controlled by Daventry District Council, and that the performance of the company reflects in DDC as a whole, does the Leader of the Council accept the view expressed by a director of TDECL that it is inappropriate for tenants to raise matters referred to in this question with the local councillors?
Thank you. Before we... No, that's fine. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank Councillor Ritchie for his question. First of all, I'll go backwards actually, because I think the point you made in the last paragraph of that question, I mean, you're right actually, TDECL, we call it TDECL, is actually a company in its own right, and they have a board, and the board would normally make decisions around rent levels. And I understand there's a meeting taking place on the 1st of March in a few days' time, where I think that item will be on the agenda, Chairman, and it's not for me actually to comment about that. That's a matter for the company to decide. But I will more than happily look into the point you raised, Councillor Ritchie, and come back in due course. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. That's the end of the questions. We move to item 7 on our agenda, motion under Council Procedure Rule 12 to consider motion notice that's been given under Council Procedure Rule 12 by Councillor Ken Ritchie. Seconded, I believe, by Councillor Randall. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. We've got hundreds, probably thousands, of residents of this district who have come here from other parts of the European Union. Some have perhaps integrated here better than others, but they're all part of our society. Some may even have voted for us. Back at the time of the EU referendum last year, the control of immigration was one of the big campaign issues. But all of the leading politicians who advocated leaving the EU and having stronger control of immigration all agreed that they were talking about proposals for the future and not measures that would affect the rights and the entitlements of people who were already legally living here in Britain. Nevertheless, it's 8 months after the referendum, and no guarantees have been given to the people who have been here as to their rights. And what is worse, their position in Britain appears to be being used as a negotiating chip in the Brexit discussions. As a consequence, there are many people who are here who have abandoned plans for buying homes because they don't know how long they can be here for, who feel that their job prospects have been jeopardized because there, of course, are issues for employers as to whether they are joining a company for the long term or not, and who even have fears about returning to visit their elderly relatives in other parts of Europe for the fear that they might not be allowed back into Britain. when they come back again.
Chairman, point of order, please. Can we have the question instead of the preamble? Thank you.
Yes, I thought that I will read it. I thought that you had taken it as read. I will read the motion, and I will also take that opportunity to ask for confirmation of the seconder, and then we'll hand back to Councillor Ritchie, and he might want to pick up from just before he was interrupted in order to ensure the continuity of what he's saying. Daventry District Council values the contribution to its economy and society of people who have come to the district from other EU states. It therefore believes that their existing rights of residence in the UK should be guaranteed and should not form part of Brexit negotiations, and it resolves to convey this view to 1. The UK Government and the MP for Daventry constituency, and 2. To all residents of the district, and in particular residents from other EU states, through a press release, Daventry calling, and its website in English and other appropriate languages. That is the motion. I'm sorry, I thought that people were aware of what it said because they had a copy in front of them. Can I please check with confirmation of the seconder?
Yes, happy to second the motion, Chair.
You'll want to speak, but you'll tell us when you want to speak. Sorry, Councillor Ritchie, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I have little more to say, other than that, I mean, clearly here we can't legislate an immigration policy. But we are here. We have a responsibility to provide community leadership. If there are residents in Daventry District who have got concerns, then it's right that we should be concerned about their concerns. We are in a position in which we can raise matters for them and in which we can speak for them. And this resolution suggests that we do that. I think many will be aware that in recent days there have been politicians across the political spectrum who within debates have been making this, this same point. And I just feel that, that we as their district council ought to be adding our voice and saying that whatever course the Brexit negotiations take, it would offend against British values of fairness and decency if we were to go back on the pledges that were given to these people, and that we should make it clear that at least we as a district council feel that we wish to give them that moral and political support.
Thank you very much. Councillor Poole.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I do agree with Councillor Ritchie, believe it or not, with regard to the expertise, etc., that have come from our EU countries, not forgetting that Polish people flew our Spitfires, helped to break the Enigma code. In fact, actually captured one of the Enigma machines. However, it is not the gift of this council to discuss it as much as I would like to discuss it. It is the gift of the Palace of Westminster and its inhabitants, namely the Prime Minister of this country, to negotiate what our efforts and what our actions will be going forward. I hope Councillor Ritchie takes this tongue in cheek, because it's meant to be, that, I think he's hedging his bets, quite honestly, because if Scotland go through their independence and want to be part of the EU, could it be that the Scottish people will have to, gain rights to stay in England, or will they all have to go home? But as I said, that was tongue-in-cheek, but it's not the gift of this council, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Poole. Councillor Miller.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'll respond to the motion before us, and I have to say I can't support it, and I'll tell you why, Chairman. We certainly support the rights of all people in our district, Councillor Richard, and that includes those from the EU or any other parts of the world who live here and want to stay here. I think the Prime Minister has made it very clear. It has to, because obviously in this motion, Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Randall saying should not form part of Brexit negotiations. The reason why the Prime Minister thinks that's very important is we have a lot of UK residents who live over in the EU. So whatever happens over here for EU residents living in this country, we have to be mindful that our residents in the EU, who are British citizens, would face the same sort of sanctions that are placed on the residents of this country. And I think the Prime Minister is very keen to have that as part of the negotiating tool, that when it comes down to it, that you can use that to make sure the residents overseas who come from our country are properly looked after, as we will properly look after the EU residents living in this country, Chairman. So I can't support this motion because that's in there, and I think this motion should be rejected. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, I agree with Councillor Ritchie as well, in principle, and the spirit of the motion. However, some of you may or may not know, but Nigel Farage has a nightly talking programme on LBC, 7 till 8 o'clock. And of course, as you know, Nigel Farage is obviously an avid UKIPper, but he's been talking about all sorts of aspects of Brexit, and he has categorically stated that he has no problem with any EU citizen living in this country, and said, quite frankly, that there is no way that EU citizens living in this country, or indeed in this district, will be forced to move out. I believe that too. If you look at the motion, number 1, any individual councillor in this chamber has got the right to write to the MP giving his or her view on this particular issue. But as I agree with Councillor Poole, it is not in our gift to actually issue a blanket support. But I have no objection to writing to my MP to support that part of the motion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Randall. Councillor Randall, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you. I feel that's a shame really that the council can't agree to endorse something and write to Westminster, however we are about any matter really. And I don't know if that means that all matters, that never ever will we be able to do that, which I feel will be a shame. But just on our part as a council, I suppose there are things that we can do. I mean, I don't know if we, how easy it is to publish things in different languages, or if we make it available that actually we can get publication of any documentation in different languages. I don't know if, you know, just some sort of small move like that, just to try and make people feel more welcome. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Howard.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I do agree with Councillor Ritchie on one aspect of there, but my concern is from a communication point of view. There's 71 languages at least in Europe. There's 24 languages which are official. There's 5 languages which are classed as semi-official. There's 42 minority languages within Europe, so I'm just trying to get a balance of what sort of languages we need to look at if we do go forward to this. Some of the minority languages, which are Romanian, Armenian, Belarusian, Catalan, Korsican, Russian, Turkish and Welsh. So it does concern me about the cost that we're looking at to do this sort of thing, so just be aware that there are so many languages that just concern me, so I can't go forward with the second discussion at Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. As an observation, 2 things. One is, it's always been my experience that if a group of people want something to happen, it's far more effective if they write as individuals to the powers that be rather than as a group. The second observation is that you've probably heard on the news that there have been a number of European Union citizens who've been requesting permission to stay in the UK, and this has been granted without hesitation. So I think it's quite clear where the government is going. I know I'm not supposed to have an opinion, that was just some facts I was passing on. Maria,
thank you, Chairman. I can clarify that the Council does have translation services available as required. That is usually verbal, but we can provide written translation services on request. It's pretty standard in public service. We do that through a telephone service often, and we can arrange for face-to-face translators as well. So that it's very infrequently used, but it is available.
thank you. I wonder how widely known that is. Maybe we could make that more widely known at this time when people clearly are anxious. That's just a thought. Councillor Griffith.
Chairman, thank you. I do believe that it's that is added, that offer is added to our applications. Perhaps Maria could confirm that.
Yes, but I myself have received things in foreign languages which say in a foreign language at the bottom. If you can't understand it, you can get it translated. So that's not necessarily. But thank you for the observation. Any other contributions to this debate? No. Well then, I must ask that we take a vote on the motion. Sorry, yes. You
Can I just very briefly?
Yes.
Right, thanks, Chair. I of course hope that the Council will agree to take a view. Certainly though, I would urge, as has been suggested, all councillors to write, and to write as councillors. I think that our MP in this one may be quite sympathetic, but I think that if these letters can go further, then so much the better. I think it's unfortunate if we can't, as a council, take a view. There are many other public institutions that have taken a view. Language need not be a problem. It seems that our officers are already dealing with the languages that we need. Polish and Romanian would cover a huge proportion of the people that we are talking about in this district. I wonder though, given that the Mayor of London has been prepared to make a statement along the lines of this resolution, I wonder whether you, as chair of the council, might consider making a public statement in the same manner.
Thank you for that thought. I'm going to leave it as a thought. Councillor Billy.
I just want to come back to the point of clarification, Chairman, because I think the point's been missed. If I refer to the motion before us, if you look at the second paragraph, that's the point of contention here. We all support the residents of our district, but what the motion is saying, it therefore believes that their existing rights of the residents in the UK should be guaranteed and should not form part of Brexit negotiations. The point that's been missed, Chairman, is our residents in the EU are left high and dry, because if we're guaranteeing the EU residents in this country, how's the government going to negotiate to protect our British residents in the EU? And it results in great reviews. So that's the point about the objection to this motion. It's not about the objection of people living here. It's about making sure it's fair and square all round, and that our residents are equally protected in the EU who live there as EU residents living here are. And I think that's why the motion's flawed, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ritchie, do you wish to respond to that?
I think I've said what I need to say. Thanks.
In that case, we can go to the vote. I'll read the motion again. It's not terribly wrong. The motion says, Daventry District Council values the contribution to its economy and society of people who come to the district from other EU states. It therefore believes that their existing rights of residence in the UK should be guaranteed and should not form part of Brexit negotiations, and it resolves to convey this view to the UK Government and the MP for Daventry constituency and to all residents of the district, and in particular residents from other EU states, through a press release, Daventry calling, and its website in English and other appropriate languages. We've had a proper proposal and seconding of that motion. It's been debated. Can I ask all those in favour of the motion, please show. I make that 3. Those against, please show. Yes. The motion, thank you. The motion clearly fails. Thank you. We'll move on to item 8, reports of committees. Receive information purposes only, the minutes of the undermentioned committees. I think Jeremy can piece of the paper. That is that agreed? It should be. Yeah. I'm seeing nods, I'm not hearing any voices. We move on to consider the recommendations of the several committees. Item 9 on our agenda. This, for those who have the papers, is page 81, and we'll work through those as we usually do. one by one. The first one being SG 04/17/01, update of safeguarding policy. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chairman. As you said, it's the update of the safeguarding policy. This was discussed in full at the strategy group on the 12th of January. Now, safeguarding is important. We as a council have a duty of care to respond to any issues of concern and any action that's needed. The policy needed updating. The recommendation is that the updated policy is adopted by members, and I ask you to support this. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Paul, you wish to speak?
No, thank you, Chairman.
Anybody else wish to speak on this? No. Can I then ask for the approval for the updated policy?
Agreed.
Thank you. Move on. SGO 5/17/02, Ravensthorpe Village Design Statement Supplementary Planning Document Adoption. Councillor James.
Thank you, Chairman. Members will recall the saga of the Ravensthorpe Village Design Statement. I went up to before a strategy group last November, and following that strategy meeting, there were some concerns expressed about process, and most unusually, at the following full council meeting, I asked our members here to defer that, to go again before the strategy committee for further discussion and consideration. That has now been done, and the result remains unaltered. And I'm now putting to you tonight the recommendation that would have gone to the previous full council meeting, that this village design statement, which is an update on the original 1999 statement, and includes the disputed 3 parcels of open land. I'm now asking you to do one of 2 things. That the new design statement is subject to some minor editorial changes, is put into a corrected form, that the current 1999 village design statement is revoked, and that the revised one, which now includes the 3 open spaces that were the subject of contention before, that is now adopted. And the actual recommendation is shown on page 81. I don't need to read this again for the umpteenth time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor James. Is there a seconder for that, please? Councillor Frenchman. Do you wish to speak?
No, thank you.
Just a fright. Anybody else wish to comment on this? No, I see. Can I have agreement that it be dealt with as stated?
Agreed.
Thank you. We move on to SGO 6/17/01 BT payphones. Councillor Wayne Howard, please.
Thank you, Chair. This was last discussed on the 4th of January regarding the K6 red telephone boxes. I discussed it some depth, which I won't go into tonight. For the newer members, that was been on the table since 2008 with British Telecom. British Telecom are looking to remove 49 of our K6 telephone boxes within our district, and all I want to do tonight is have a recommendation that the business manager be authorised to agree to the decommissioning of the telephone boxes in the future, where A, there's no objection need for the telephoning machinery, and B, the box is either a non-traditional red K6 type or would be adopted by the local parish or other suitable bodies. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Frenchman again. Do you wish to speak on this?
No, thank you, Chair.
Does anybody wish to... Councillor Micklewright.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As part of the consultation process on this item, it was sent out to the various parish councils affected, and it was discussed with the parish councils in my ward. During the course of that, a number of them raised a concern of a practical nature with the removal of boxes where they are taken out, and that is that where the boxes are not on level ground, there could be a risk that what is left when the box has been removed is a raised concrete platform protruding. And they were quite keen that any programme of removal should ensure that those concrete bases were also removed and that the ground was left safe at the end of that removal process. With that in mind, I would like to say first of all that I agree and happy with the recommendation, but I would like to propose an amendment, and that is to add on that there be a requirement to ensure that contractors make good the base of the former phone box to ensure that it does not constitute a health and safety trip or other hazard once removed. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that?
Chair, I'd just like to say we don't actually need an amendment on that. What we do is I'll ask the officers if they could write to British Telecom requesting the request rather than an amendment. If I just get the officers to confirm if that's the case.
Hang on, is that okay?
Chairman has proposed an amendment, the councillors, so if there is a seconder, then,
Yeah.
or the alternative is the councillor is willing to withdraw the opposition.
Is there a seconder for the Councillor Pritchard? Do you wish to speak? No, thank you, Chair. Just want the process to go through. That's fine. That's what we're here for. Yeah. So, was a note made at the end?
Yes, Chair.
Could I ask you to read it out, please?
I might have missed a couple of words, but you said that you wanted a requirement for the contractors to make good based, so it does not constitute a trip hazard.
A health and safety trip or other hazard.
Thank you. So this is for the amendment. Can I see those in favour of that amendment, please? That seems to be... Any against? I think that's then called. The amendment now stands as part of the recommendation.
Chairman.
Sorry, yes.
Chairman, my apologies. Just one very minor issue. The amendment refers to contractors. I wonder if Council might be inclined to refer instead to British Telecom, because that will just ease the process of implementing what Council
Happy with that suggestion.
Thank you. Yes, yes. We don't want to delay anything by having further interpretation. In that case, we now give consideration as to the amended recommendation, which is that business manager be authorised to agree to the decommissioning of telephone boxes in future where A, there is no objective need for the telephony, and B, the box is either not a traditional red box K6 or would be adopted by a parish council or other suitable body. And then we add the recommendation, which is that British Telecom be asked to ensure that it's left safe and healthy. Can I see those in favour of that, please? I see none against. Any against? Just for the record, no, that's also carried. No problem. Thank you very much. We move on then to Corporate Governance Committee recommendation, CG 0817, page 82, future appointment of auditors. This would normally be Councillor Bunting, but
Yes, the Councillor Bunting is due to do this tonight, Chairman. He's not here, as we know. I therefore propose the recommendation is before you, and obviously if any Corporate Governance Committee member wants to add anything to that, then I'm happy for them to do so. Thank you, Chairman.
thank you very much. Is there a second of that, please? Councillor Fraser, I remember your name. Do you wish to speak?
No, thank you.
Does anybody wish to speak? In that case, can I ask for your agreement that the... All right. I won't promise to keep You'd agree to anything, wouldn't you? How about a pay rise for the chairman? We move on to strategy group SG 11-1701, corporate strategic plan for 2017 to 2020. Councillor Miller, I believe.
Thank you, Chairman. This is to seek approval for the strategic plan for 2017-20. The plan is very similar to the current one, Chairman. The following main changes to the priorities. The objective to improve our business economy, learning and skills. Greater clarity about the Council's twin aim to develop the economy in both Daventry town and in the rural area. Two priorities have been added. One is to develop Daventry town, and the second one, and maximise economic opportunities in the rural area. These will replace the previous attract and facilitate a range of investments. That's one of the main changes. The second one is the priority maintain and develop opportunities for employment and learning has been amended to facilitate and develop opportunities for employment and learning, thus replacing a greater stress on improvement. I have to say, Chairman, this council gets heavily involved in the local education agenda. I was at a meeting this afternoon on that very matter, and we take this very seriously in terms of actually our growth agenda as a whole, the town and district, to ensure we have the right education facilities and the right learning opportunities for our young people and others as time moves on. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Miller. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Hills, do you wish to speak?
Yes, just a brief word, Chairman. This makes sense. The economy, education, things like that are important issues. And I think that we should support this because it affects everybody within the district. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie, do you want to speak?
Thank you, Chair. I don't disagree at all with the changes that I understand are changes. As a first-time councillor that wants to approach this fresh. I wanted to say I was very pleased to see that amongst our priorities is encouraging a safe and healthy lifestyle with the extent to which people participate in sport and physical activity as a sort of proxy measure about how well we are getting there. I was, however, surprised that we're looking here at sport and physical activity and physical well-being. It would have been nice to see something about mental well-being. We want a district in which people feel fit, but also one in which people feel good. And perhaps the proxy rather than sport that might go with that would be the extent to which we have an aim in ensuring that there are adequate facilities in the field of arts and culture within the district. Now, I don't, of course, plan to oppose this document because of what I think is that of the mission. But I do think there is a much more serious mission. And that is anything within the plan that refers to strengthening local government. Because local government is, after all, the thing that, that makes this council, that's what it is that we are here for. I would like to draw attention to one little bit of wording within the strategy that I think that perhaps captures this. And that is the use of the word customer. Now, Tesco's is customers. Customers at Tesco's can go somewhere else if they don't like what's on offer. They don't own Tesco's, they have no control over Tesco's. Tesco's can pay attention to them, or Tesco's can let them go somewhere else. It's not the relationship that we have with residents. They can't choose to whom they pay council tax, but they're in a different position. That they, in a sense, they own the council. The electeds. We are accountable to them. They're there because they're not customers. They are citizens. And I feel that there are occasions in which language is important because it's language that sort of conveys what is the culture in which we're working. And I just feel that if in the future, I don't propose changes to this tonight, that in the future maybe that little change, well, not only might it remind us what we are here for, but it might convey to our residents what their relationship is or what it should be with the council and with their individual councillors. And it might go just a little way towards getting a little bit more engagement Goodhue residents as citizens and the council and the council's affairs. I had wondered at one stage, Chair, about trying to bring a motion to this council to allow this sort of change to be debated. I expect that the normal dynamics of debates and motions that take place within council meetings wouldn't provide the open discussion that I think this needs. And if there are members that can suggest a better way of actually carrying that forwards, I would welcome their advice.
Thank you for that contribution. I'm not allowed an opinion, but if I were, I wouldn't disagree with you. I myself don't actually like the use of the word customer in a non-transactional process. But the important thing to say is that what you have said is on record, and no doubt people can bear it in mind. Did you want to speak again?
I'll come back on the Councillor Richard's points, if I may, Chairman. The second point actually is that we always have scrutiny and improvement as a member, so actually maybe try that route if you want to take that forward, Councillor Richie. The more important point about mental health actually is interesting, so I think one of the things that people say about mental health, one of the ways of actually trying to manage that is to have activity, sport, leisure, and so therefore I think our agenda does help that actually in a way, in a sense indirectly. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I actually live with someone. My wife is actually mentally ill in many ways. She suffers from a number of issues. And I do know that the council have tremendous support out there. There are a number of programs out there that support us. I know it's part of the package. I know that there are some words that are not used in it that may be more appropriate. Well, I think there's a plethora of actually a very good support out there for people who suffer in Daventry. And I actually think it's superb. I've gone to other areas where it's not as strong. So I know she's received that support, and it is in areas around culture, art, and various other things where she does get some therapy from it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That was helpful. Councillor Shepard.
Chairman, just to go back on Councillor Richard's customer point, I have great sympathy with that point. It's not a new point. It's one that we have debated for, well, not debated, but it's one that's concerned us for many years, frankly. The actual wording, it's in our vision. The council's vision is to develop a better district. In everything we do, we will do our very best to place the customer at the heart of everything we do, communicate honestly and openly with customers and colleagues at all times. And Chairman, if Councillor Ritchie can think of a better word, well, good luck to him. But no one has yet.
He did make a suggestion. Anyway, not for now, because as Councillor Ritchie carefully pointed out, it would not be appropriate to vote against this document on that particular point, but as I say, his view has been placed on record, and it's clear that there are a number of others who share a similar view. If there's no further debate on this, can I ask that you agree the recommendation that the strategic plan be approved? Agreed. Thank you. SG 111702 Strategic Risk Register 2017-2020. Councillor Miller again, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I think this is my last one. I just want to say quickly on this one, this was debated at strategy group, Chairman, the strategy risk register. You have the details on your papers tonight. I'm happy to take any questions. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Thank you again, Councillor Thomas. Good. Any debate? Does that mean that...
Agreed.
Thank you. That's what I was coming to. We come to SG 121702.
Yes, Chair.
Review of housing and allocation scheme. Councillor Stephen Oswald.
Yes, I'm a reserve, Chairman. The members probably know that each council is required to have a scheme in place that people who apply for housing, affordable housing, know how it works, etc., are required to have it by law. It has to be updated now and again. This council strategy group decided to put it out for consultation end of last year to see what the people affected thought of it. it took into account what we thought and amended it very slightly. You'll see two recommendations which I am asking the council to resolve. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Osborne. Is there a seconder for that, please? Councillor Frenchman. You wish to speak?
No, thank you, Chair.
You can come again. Any debate on this point? Agreed. Thank you. That will agree to carry forward. Come to an interesting point, SG 13-1701, Daventry District Community Lottery. Councillor Hill.
Thank you again, Chairman. Daventry District Community Lottery. The recommendations are there before you. That the online community strategy is established for Daventry District. That £10,000 one-off payment is agreed to cover set-up costs and also the launch. Now, my understanding is that there's been quite a significant consultation on this, involving community groups, etc. And having attended a meeting at the volunteer centre where other volunteer groups were present, there is no doubt that from the voluntary sector there's very, very strong support. The price actually is £1 per ticket, which makes it extremely affordable. The management is done by an external lottery manager, which means very little cost to the district council apart from the initial set-up costs. The scheme is flexible, it allows for monitoring and change to some of the arrangements if necessary. I note that one or two members were concerned regarding encouraging gambling. Yes, the lottery is a bit of a gamble. But lotteries are not addictive, such as going and gambling at a casino or betting on the horses, etc. Ours is a small lottery, and it's very unlikely to have a major impact on people's gambling habits. In fact, it's only going to be a very small ripple in the pool. It is an opportunity for local community groups to benefit. That means local good causes. And it is the public who decide on this and whether to take part. I believe that a local lottery benefiting the community, where local people play a major role, is worthwhile supporting. And members, I commend this to you.
Thank you, Councillor Hills. Do you have a second? Councillor Hatchett, do you wish to speak?
No, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Brown, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Chairman. We had a very healthy debate in strategy when this came before the committee. With the kind permission of the Chair, at that meeting I did make one or two comments which I'd like to put towards full council tonight. I did do a significant amount of reading on this issue, and I concur with Councillor Hills that draw-based lottery games are not addictive. However, there is a significant body of evidence to suggest that lotteries are played disproportionately by people from the lowest socio-demographic groups in terms of income. Often with lottery games, the proceeds from those games are not reinvested back in the communities from which the proceeds are drawn initially. I'd therefore be very keen for scrutiny and improvement to study the operation of the lottery, say 12 months on from its establishment, and have a full-scale review of the community groups who have benefited from the lottery, and establish whether we may make some improvements at that stage as to the kind of groups where the funds are being put towards.
Thank you. Councillor Frenchman.
Thank you, Chair. On a slightly more optimistic note, I wondered what the level of prizes is.
And your future.
I'm being optimistic.
Councillor Randall.
Yes, thank you, Chairman.
I just often wonder where these things actually are initiated from. And looking at other council meetings, their scrutiny and improvement, often it starts at that committee. They go off, investigate it, then bring it back to council. But it often seems here that it's landed on us. And then I went home from the meeting last time and thought, actually, who come up with the idea? You know, how does it get on our page? Who this idea? Who decides this? Is it voluntary groups that come to the council? I don't know, but to me, you know, rather than do it in 12 months' time, I'd sooner the scrutiny look at it in the first place. Thank you.
Can I just answer that question, Chair?
Yes.
Because the council around the way it came from. It came from the LGA conference, where another council, Aylesbury Vale, actually adopted this scheme. It's working very well. So we thought it's an idea we'd like to bring to Daventry, because lots of people there actually get involved in it, and they're very grateful. The community groups are very grateful for the funds that go their way, and obviously people have a little flutter, they can win a prize. And also, what they do every so often is refresh it, so they revamp it every now and again. But it's really good. We got the message from Aylesbury Vale that the community groups did really well, and we thought it's worth trying here. Work at the end of the day, we have to continue after 1 year maybe, but we can always look at it as we go along. And you're quite right about scrutiny. Scrutiny have that role to play.
Yes, Councillor Walker.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get to strategy to discuss these issues, and I personally have concerns and worries about gambling. Full stop. Anything that encourages it, or public bodies that encourage it, and for many reasons that were cited with regard to it disproportionately affecting people who perhaps can less afford it. And although I will not stand in the way of this proposal, I will need to abstain on moral issues. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's a good idea to give money back to community causes. Totally agree with that. I think there is a few little questions about scrutiny though. First of all, I'd like to know, after the £10,000 set-up cost, how long would it take us to recoup that money in terms of allocation of prizes? Because I wouldn't be as casual to say after a year we could actually let it go if it's not working, when we've actually set up £10,000 actually Councillor Miller. So I think it's a personal question to see how much money we're going to recoup and how long it will take to do that in the first instance. And you know, Aylesbury Vale, I know the Vale very well, but did you ask him, that councillor, if actually it went through scrutiny improvement there first before they actually joined in with a third party?
Thank you, Councillor Village.
I'll just come back on that point, Chairman. It's the leader actually, the councillors, which have actually told me about this. I didn't ask a scrutiny question, but all we did know is we knew what the track record was that council adopting this idea. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Richard.
Thank you, Chair. I don't like gambling. And I know that if we buy alcohol or tobacco, it comes with a health warning in the packet. I just wonder if we're going to have a health warning on this. But I'm more concerned about some of the practicalities. You know, we've got, I mean, the impression I got from the meeting, from the strategy group meeting, that this is a scheme that really would be open to all local groups within the district that might want to take part, which of course is good, and it would be good if there was that level of interest. But we've got 70-something parishes in the district, and most of these parishes will have at least one community group or group that's concerned with, whether it's with the local church or a youth group or sport or whatever it might be. How are we possibly going to do it if they all come and say that they want to take part? I just feel that there are some practical questions that I just don't understand how we would react if we found that we were in the position of needing to decide which organisations could be considered beneficiaries and which we were going to say no, you can't join in, and what criteria we would use. I feel that it is good that we want to encourage people to put money into pots that will be used for these, for these worthwhile causes within their own areas. I mean, that is good. But I do wonder too, that I know that The prizes in fact is a lottery gives a little bit extra incentive or excuse for asking people for money. But if somebody really wants to help and so, look, you know, you give me £1 and I will give 40 pence to your good cause. Should we not be looking for some way of tying in the lottery with helping some of these organisations to make a much more direct approach to funds, or a much bigger cut of what it is that people want to give to them? I just feel that there are questions. Maybe that if the, you know, it has been suggested that there should be a review after a year. I just feel there's so many issues that it would make sense if this was sent back so that the strategy group could have another look at this and we come back with something that is a little bit more detailed about how we might tackle some of these complexities should they arise.
Thank you. Councillor Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I do agree with Councillor Auger, Councillor Brown. They are addictive. Purely and simply, if you put your wife's, your daughter's, your husband's, or whoever's birthdays down, the moment you do that, you're captured. My old dad, tic-tac man at the White City, bookmaker at Haringey, would turn in his grave if I voted for this. You know, I don't like gambling. However, the track record is good. The track record for these local lotteries is good. NHS have started one, etc. And you know, there is money available which can go to good causes which would not readily be available. But you know, if it works, great. If it doesn't, I can't vote for it. Business on this occasion.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. Councillor Stephen Osborne.
I've got to say what I said at strategy, Chairman. At the moment, these groups are getting nothing.
Yes.
If they get 50% of something, it's better than 100% of nothing. And I truly believe that. And I do gamble, Chairman. I don't bet horses or anything like that, but I do go and play roulette occasionally. I make no secret of it. I enjoy it. I don't find it unpleasant. I'm not addicted to it. And I do it. And I'll probably buy a lottery ticket now and again. So I'm happy to support it. I know Councillor Paul isn't, but I'm happy to support it.
Thank you for that opinion. Often when I was at university, I was asked advice from people who wanted to know whether or not I thought their chances of winning the national lottery were worth them putting money in. And I always suggested that instead they should give the money to me.
That's selfish, though,
Somebody else, anybody else?
Thank you, Chairman. Just a quick one. Can I ask anybody in this council chamber who has not gone to a coffee morning on behalf of a small community charity and not bought a raffle ticket for the prizes that people have actually donated? That could be construed as gambling. I don't believe it is. I'm sorry, Councillor Auger, I don't agree with you on that point at all.
You're entitled to an opinion. I think that was directed at you, Councillor Auger.
Yeah, I think that's a bit unfair, really. You don't know me, and I wouldn't buy a raffle ticket, and I never have done. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a bit unfair, actually.
I'm not going to allow a series of confessions of bad behaviour or good behaviour. We'll be here all night. Councillor Hill.
Yeah, I'd just like to say this. I mentioned the word, it's up to the public. It is, they can buy a ticket or they can ignore it and not take part. Very valid point that Councillor Carter made that I was going to make, that Councillor Osborne. A lot of these charities have suffered through cuts for various reasons. I'm not going to go into details of that. We all know that. We all know that's happened. Still one of them. Any money that goes to help them, in turn, goes to help the residents and the public within the district. I think that's something that's very worthwhile. Because quite frankly, when we talk about our voluntary sector and our community groups, whatever government was in power, they could never cover and do the work and cover the expense that all these things do. They do a hell of a lot. And I think it's worthwhile investigating something like this I must admit, quite frankly, I don't know how long it's going to take us to recuperate our money. I think some of the officers have probably got an answer on that, but I think it's well worthwhile investigating, looking at it and taking it further from there, because it helps everybody if we can get something like this off the ground.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Maria.
Thank you, Chairman. On page 54 of the original strategy report, the table sets out that based on 40,000 annual ticket sales, which is our lowest estimate, that would generate £20,000 total benefit to community groups, which would rise the higher end of our estimate would be £30,000. And so we would anticipate generating a payback. I mean, the council's not claiming its money back. The proposal is that the council spends £10,000, but nevertheless the community would be benefiting two or threefold depending on which estimate is achieved.
Thank you very much. Those figures are helpful. I think we've covered that. If anybody had asked me before this meeting which of the topics we were going to discuss would produce the longest amount of debate, I wouldn't have chosen this one. I'd like now to put to the meeting the recommendation from the strategy group that an online lottery as described in the report is established for Daventry district and that a one-off payment of £10,000 to cover set-up costs. Can I see those in favour, please? I think I should count those. Thank you. Can I see those against, please? Any abstentions? 3. Thank you. Well, that is carried, but that's interesting. Thank you. We'll move on. SG 141701, empty commercial property, Councillor Paul, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Well, first and foremost, I'd like to thank Councillor Pritchard for an excellent report that was brought to strategy, liaising with our officers. Again, excellent report. Highlighted, for instance, the 2008 crash and what a pitiful state we were in at that time. However, we've moved on since then. Our occupancy in commercial property, 99%. Our employment in Daventry district is 6% higher than the national average. And I think we deserve credit for that. There is nothing too complicated about the recommendations, Chairman. You can see them before you. I put them before you and ask for them to be agreed.
Thank you very much, Councillor Paul. Do you have a second for that, please? Councillor Frenchman.
No, I just heartily agree with it.
Does anybody wish to speak? I see no hands. Can I then have your view of the acceptance of this recommendation?
Agree.
Thank you. We move on, SG 151701, we're now on page 84. Future delivery of environmental services, Councillor Guildford, please.
You have before you, as the Chair has highlighted, a report giving recommendations for the future service delivery of environmental services. Now, I do hope tonight that this report will generate a lot of debate because there is key decisions here that are having to be made. I do not intend to go through the report that went to strategy line by line, but I do apologise in advance that I may sound like a parrot to some of you because I do think it's important that you are aware, for those who are of the decisions that we're looking to be recommended tonight. So going back to the original report, I mean, the information and the introduction are self-explanatory. The report then goes on to list 5 delivery options and the evaluation of those options, arriving at the conclusion of the evaluation that option 3, the joint venture services provider with North as the preferred option. We had an excellent member development evening prior to tonight's meeting, which many of you attended, at which the actual proposal was handed out, and there was a presentation from the sales director, commercial director and operational directors at North, so that all of you as councillors are well informed for the decision we've got to make. Negotiations are ongoing and a deal needs to be done. To continue with Amy, that is not an option. Amy is not an offer on the table. Therefore, the intention is, if that by April 2017 there is not sufficient certainty around the joint venture that can be delivered, then there is recommendation 3 to permit us to go on to procurement, because we have no option. We have to have something in place by June 18. So if I now just go on to North itself, North is ultimately owned by Norfolk County Council and has 12 provision joint ventures with councils, mainly but not exclusively in East Anglia. The closest is Wellingborough. Councillor John Shepherd and myself made a site visit to Wellingborough and were most impressed with the facility and the management of the staff itself. We have another site visit happening tomorrow with other key members, Councillor i.e. the leader and the Chief Executive and other officers. My observations on site were, and there was only a few members on site, but the culture of the staff there, the way the staff were able to approach senior members on site, i.e. a driver, speak to the Chief Executive, call them over to the vehicle, speaks volumes to me, and it's not something that has been happening with our current contractor, and I think it speaks that there's good working relations between the staff, which leads a lot to the culture of the joint venture. Incidentally, it was good to catch up with familiar faces, because I have been worked, as you all know, as an officer in the environmental services, and faces there that I did recognise and I did know, and some that worked for us when we were a beacon council and now work for North Wellingborough. But let's go back to the North model. This combines a high degree of local control, which is something that has been missing, but by having this joint venture we would regain that. There's also strategic management within the model of the human resources and procurement, again an element that's been missing from the current contract. And thirdly, there's an intention to grow commercial business, and in doing so reduce the net cost of the service provision to the partner council. So this is about a joint venture. A North joint venture is typically 80% owned by North and 20% by the relevant council. It typically has a board of 5 directors, 2 appointed by the council and 3 including the local operational director by North. There's a similar proposal for Daventry. There is also an operational board, a liaison board of key council stakeholders, and on that, Wellingborough have a cross-party board. It's something that I would welcome here at Daventry to enable cross-board party on that liaison board. Yes, we don't have total control, but we have access to all the company information because we're part of this joint venture, so we can insist on seeing it. So that gives us, again, more control than we currently have. The financial risk is taken by the North Group, and they cover any losses, whereas the profit, if any, is shared between the partners, i.e. North and ourselves. It appears that North, and this is another observation, North's JVs have a long life, with partner councils typically choosing to renew the arrangements when they become due. So again, this can only be a good sign. You don't renew with anyone if it's not working. The initial partnership term, in Daventry's case, would be 10 years, with an extension option, but there is a termination clause as well, should it need to be applied. The growth of the commercial business would relate well to the current scrutiny and improvement task panel on developing profitable public benefit services. And the Norse JVs have a good track record of developing income streams in a wide range of areas. All this is very, very positive. The report then goes on to detail what's happening in the Northamptonshire Waste Partnership study. No final results are available yet from the study. However, the service delivery option we have chosen, the 1-2-3 model, will enable significant savings to the county council, and therefore it appears likely that the NWP will produce results which mean that the JV model with Norse would be the sensible option. Two other important sections in the report detail on inspection how both Norse and officers have expressed the view that the council's current depot is in need of enhancement to be fit for purpose and maximise efficiencies. There hasn't been much investment on site, and as with any business, with new technology, things move on. So calculations suggest that improvements would make it possible to save a further $340,000 on the revenue budgets, should there be some investments. Options are therefore being explored for the enhancement of the current depot or its replacement. For these purposes, it's suggested that a capital programme provision for £2.5 million is made. Having seen the purpose-built facility at Wellingborough, I strongly recommend some form of investment. Another key aspect of the report that was put forward to strategy is a slight change in the service delivery design. We originally were putting forward the bins with the boxes in to put the glass, but for reasons listed in the report, we're now recommending that we switch to a two-stream, fully commingled recycling collection. In plain English, that means no boxes, just the two bins. This has to be both good for the customers and the crew. The rest of the report looks at the remaining environmental services, which are just as important. They're all frontline facing services. In relation to landscaping, additional resources have been allowed to invest and improve the service, because this has been an area where complaints have risen. We've also given the parish and town councils the opportunity to engage and allow them, if they so wish, to take on litter picking and maintenance of closed churchyards. The figure at the time of strategy was 20 parish councils that expressed an interest. I think that has risen since then. And I also asked for us to write to the town council to see if they would like to consider taking these services, frontline services on. The report then goes on to detail the risks and the conclusions and the approval process and the implementation aspects. So to summarise, in accordance with the decision of the Council in July 2016, work has taken place to establish the best ways to deliver the environmental services, and consideration has been given to all the main options with clear recommendations that approval in principle be enter into a joint venture arrangement with Norse. Importantly, it represents a good fit with our medium-term financial plan. This recommendation before you offers flexibility combined with useful risk transfer and opportunities to reduce net service costs over time. It would sit alongside delegation of urban litter picking and maintenance of closed churchyards to those parish councils which desire this. And there are fallback options for commercial procurement if we can't proceed down the joint venture route. I don't propose to read all the recommendations out, but I therefore ask that you consider the recommendations before you. The only other thing to point out here is that because of the timetable of council meeting, delegation has been asked to be put to strategy. So I'm sure we'll have lots of questions.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gilbert. Do you have a seconder for the proposal, first of all? Do you wish to speak now?
I don't up to this moment in time. I'll speak a bit later on.
Thank you. Councillor Randall.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I was at strategy, and as you can see in the papers, I did have some concerns. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make the training session last week, which, you know, I would have loved to attend, but circumstances took me away from that evening. So I was just wondering whether the two things that I brought up really was the food waste collection in the sheltered accommodation and flats, and you know, and how that was going to go forward, if any provision was going to be able to be made, because otherwise that means they're going to have food waste in their bin for 3 weeks, and that is going to be awful. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We'll come to responses to that. Councillor Frenchman.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, unfortunately I wasn't able to get to the training session either because it was half term. But I did read the report that was left in my pigeonhole, and I was very impressed with their presentation and also the content of that report. My main concern is with the depot. I think without doubt we should not refurbish the existing depot. We should go for a new depot as the priority, which I think I've made that clear, and it does say in the report that we would do either, but I think it should be more emphasis on a new one and not necessarily based in Daventry. And I'd also concur with the option that had been chosen. As you all know, I moved to Harbour and we had an insert in the bin for glass, and it was a complete pain, though generally it was easier putting it all in one bin. They've now done away with that, and it makes it so much easier, and I think the recycling rates are quite high there. So I commend the work that the strategy and Joe and the environment team have done on this, because I think it's an excellent report, and I look forward to improved services at reduced costs.
Thank you, Councillor Frenchman. Councillor Patrick.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. As some of you know, the subject of closed churchyard is a particular favourite subject of mine, has been for some years, and so it's very welcome that recommendation 1A and B is now on the table to be approved by the council tonight. However, what concerns Byfield Parish in one instance is that if they do take on both the litter picking and the maintenance of the churchyard, and they take on the legal responsibility, they're worried that the special expenses part of the council tax will remain on their parish's bill. So what I'd like to do is propose an amendment to 1B of the recommendation to include the sentence: if parish councils accept legal responsibility and financial responsibility for the maintenance of their closed churchyard, the special expenses charge will be removed from council tax bills for that parish. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Hang on. Yeah, I know. There are a number of points being raised. I'll come back to you in a minute, but I want first of all to get a collection of views. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. 3 fairly small points. I understand that Norse would look for a 10-year contract.
I'm sorry, Chair, but Councillor Patchett made a proposal, so you need to get a seconder for it.
That was a proposal for an amendment.
Yes.
It was, Chair. Thank you. Is there a seconder for it? Oh, I thought it might be you.
No, thank you, Chair.
In that case, we need to address that before we go any further. I'm not sure that it words. Councillor Guildford.
All I would say is I could not support this amendment on the basis that, yes, if legal responsibility transfers, we still retain some responsibility on a health and safety side as a council. Yes, the majority of the special expenses would disappear, but we would need to retain just a small element of the special expenses to cover the administration costs, etc., of ensuring that Byfield or any other parish council were delivering the service to the certain standards, safety standards.
Could I come back on that, Chairman?
And that there's other parish councils as well, if you read within the report, that have had work undertaken under capital expenses, and therefore we have to retain the avenue to be able to pull back those charges.
I'll come back to you in a
Okay,
minute, but there's a couple of other points that have been shown to me. Councillor Shepherd,
Only on this last amendment point, Chairman, we address special expenses later on in the agenda, of course. On Councillor Patch's specific point here, we are told in the report that went to strategy that if the maintenance of closed church charge is retained back to the parish council would then discharge the council's legal duties because they would remain ours at its own expense, allowing the special expenses relating to that item to cease, except where any costs continue to be incurred by the council. And that's the point I think that Councillor Guildford is making. I would anticipate those costs to be either zero or negligible. The point that has always concerned those of us with closed church charge is that the special expenses are charged to the parishes by a formula that is pretty archaic. It was drawn up many years ago, and arguably it doesn't actually relate to the precise cost of doing the work today. But we're stuck with that formula until the end of the AMI contract. Certainly the intention is that there is zero cost charged through expenses because there won't be any work done by Daventry. But we still have, as I understand it, a health and safety issue because the liability still is ours. And so there's still a tiny amount of work to be done in monitoring the performance at the ground level.
thank you. I'm going to seek clarification on that particular point in a moment. Councillor Stephen Osborne, you want to speak?
Chairman, I think I'll argue this before at strategy. I cannot say I support Councillor Patchett, we've got a closed churchyard. And if we have the thing back, the responsibility in law is for the parish, and the parish decided to pass it on to the district to do. So if the parish had it back, he not only has to monitor it, but he has to monitor the health and safety and every part of it. So I cannot see how the district council can keep any money at all to do with that churchyard. It doesn't have the responsibility to monitor the health and safety. As far as I'm aware, whoever's doing the churchyard has the responsibility, and I thought the law said the parish council had the responsibility to maintain it. So if it gets back the responsibility to maintain it, I think Councillor Benjamin and Councillor Patchett are correct. We shouldn't be paying anything at all.
Thank you. Simon, can you clear this up at all?
Thank you, Chairman. I will attempt to. The law in this area is not particularly helpful. Certainly the background law is extremely old, Victorian legislation that's been carried forward into the 1972 Local Government Act, which itself, I suppose, is relatively old these days. The legal provisions are when a churchyard is closed, the maintenance liability sits still with the parochial church council, Church of England body. The parochial church council can resolve to pass that responsibility on to a parish council if there is one, or alternatively to a district unitary council if there isn't. And if it's passed on to a parish council, the parish council then has 3 months within which it can resolve to pass it on to the relevant district council. Now that all works by statute. The problem is there is no way back in the Act. We did actually discuss with our MP, Stephen Harris, potentially getting the law amended to provide a formal way back that would achieve the outcome that Councillor Osborne is talking about. But unfortunately, the Ministry of Justice was not inclined to take an amendment on a bill to achieve that. So we have a position where, as a matter of statute, the responsibility, once it's stuck to DDC, cannot be unstuck. And that means the best we can do is enter into an agency agreement whereby we hand over that responsibility to somebody else, parish council, carried out on the district council's behalf. But the problem is, as a matter of statute, we cannot get rid of DDC's ultimate responsibility to keep the churchyard in good repair, and equally, under the Health and Safety at Work Act, DDC's Section 3 duties, this health and safety people not in its employment, is not eliminated. And therefore, regrettably, we have to keep some level of oversight, which will be as minimal as possible, just to make sure DDC's legal position was covered. That's all it's about. And then the special expenses is really a question of mathematical calculations that flow from it. But that is where we are.
Thank you very much. That was a clarification. You might argue that it just changed the colour of the fog, but I think that makes it clear that there is no way back within the legal framework at the moment. Councillor Augur.
Yeah, it's just really a clarification point. Are you saying then, I appreciate that the statute doesn't allow the authority to flow back, but does it mean that you have control over how much money you take from the parishes? In other words, they're not necessarily be subject to a full amount based on the formula because they are taking on some of the responsibilities. Does that make sense? So you can, or is that statute as well? Does that question?
The question does make sense.
Yeah.
Is there an answer?
Chairman, thank you. If we take a sort of hypothetical churchyard that might cost, I don't know, £5,000 a year, you would expect the vast majority of that cost to cease being charged by this council and instead to be met by the parish council from its precept. So the special expenses charge would decrease in that example from £5,000 to maybe 500. A very small figure, but parish support was charged. And the parish council would charge whatever it needed to charge to perform the level of service it wished to carry out, provided the legal minimum was met. Hopefully that further clarifies my clarification.
Thank you.
Can I come back, Chairman?
Just a moment.
I just have one question. Oh, sorry. Apologies, Chair. I have one question. What inclination is there for any parish council, therefore, to take on the responsibility if the financial cost is going to be to them? Surely then it's always going to be the responsibility of the district council, and therefore the financial they have to bear that responsibility as well.
I will treat that as a rhetorical question because I can't possibly answer it. Councillor Patrick, you wanted to respond to some of these points.
Yes, Chairman. Well, first of all, item 1B, part 2, it says that the parish council should take on the district council's legal obligations and that they're covered. And they would be covered by things like insurance for damage, or but parishes have their own health and safety protocols and legal responsibilities that they take on when they maintain things like their play equipment and playing fields and such like. There's no legal reason why the parish council, which is a legal body, can take on the responsibility of that closed churchyard, that they're not covering the legal responsibility of the district council as well, and they can insure against that anything that would untoward happen. And as such, there's no reason for the district council to charge anything whatsoever. And one thing that does I feel is the continued increase without reference, which I'll deal with later on in the agenda, Chairman, year-on-year increases which are unregulated by and unchallenged. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Guilford, there's been quite a lot of, we have this amendment that we must deal with. Was your point to do with the amendment?
It was only to answer the question
well, that might be helpful.
The reason that a parish may want to take on the service. And I use the analogy
of the grass cutting in parishes. For our example, our grass cutting, it's not a special expense exception to DDC. Grass cutting is a county responsibility, and the county only have a certain level of that it has to do 4 cuts per year. Now that is not acceptable to parishes, and we take on that responsibility and we increase our precept to cover the costs above just the 4 cuts, so that we can deliver an enhanced service. So it could be not dissimilar from the churches that, there is the minimum standard, but an individual parish may decide they want, formal gardens in their church or something, but then they would precept and they would have it within their power to do that themselves by that responsibility transferring. So that's why it's been given the option to allow the parishes to decide for themselves what standards they want.
Thank you very much. I'd like to decide the amendment. Is there a note of the amendment?
Chairman, it was produced rather quickly. It would be useful to share it. We have it on tape, obviously, but it's important that members know what was said, because it was delivered rather than... and we haven't got a full account of it.
I can read it out again.
Please. Thank you, that would be helpful.
Okay, the amendment would be that if parish councils do accept legal responsibility and financial responsibility for the maintenance of their closed churchyard, the special expenses charge will be removed from council tax bills for that parish.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Chairman, I just want to be sure with colleagues that that's able to be done, that's lawful, etc. Has anybody got any impediment to that from a purely legitimate point of view? Just useful, we don't make a decision.
Yeah, well, I think the answer that's Councillor Osborne.
Can I make a quick point, Chairman? I agree completely in principle with the proposition. We've heard from behind that we can't quite achieve that because of a legal technicality. I am happy that the council, that we modify that very, very slightly, that the district council does its best to, in effect, give the money back, but within the law, if you know what I mean. Not completely take it as the recommendation says, but for the council to make sure there's something there that allows us to get the money back, but it's lawful to get the money back. At the moment it would be unlawful to get the money back, according to the officer's advice.
Thank you. Before I put that as an amendment to the amendment, I'd like some clarification further from you.
Thank you, Chairman. We have this as a little discussion. Our understanding, but we would need to confirm this, is that once council has decided something as special expenses, you can't unsection it, you can't put it back into the general fund, and therefore we think the amendment would indeed be unimplementable as unlawful. So we would ask council not to go with the amendment tonight and not to check the position and confirm.
Thank you. Thank you.
If it helps, Chairman, we are talking about something that's not going to be put into effect at the earliest possible date, is midsummer 2018. The probability is it could be a bit later, it could tie in council years to April of 19. I do strongly urge members not to tamper or take this amendment at all. There are complicated legal reasons that Simon's just explained. There is plenty of opportunity for Council Paget to bring the matter back to Council in one way or another, way before there's opportunity to implement it.
Thank you, that's good advice. Where that leaves me is that we have an amendment which has been proposed and seconded and debated much. The option, we've just had some advice, and the options now are either that the proposer of the amendment, with the agreement of the seconder, withdraws it, or we decide it, bearing in mind the advice we've just received.
I could perhaps have another go at the amendment, Chairman, if that's possible.
No, I don't think so. I think I think part of the advice that we just received is that you should do just that, but not now in this meeting.
Right. I don't particularly want to remove this, withdraw the amendment, but I can have the assurance that it will come back to strategy group, and I'll be happy to do that. Yeah.
I'm not in a position to give you that assurance, but we've all heard what you've said. The chairman of strategy group is present. He's heard what you've said. We've heard the advice that we've received, which is that there is time and therefore presumably some incentive to sort this out before it needs to be done. I think if I can...
Yeah, I think we remove it, withdrawing the amendment, and will be the right thing, Chairman. Thank you.
Does your seconder agree?
I agree.
Thank you very much. I think that was a helpful discussion. We must now proceed to consider the motion for the, before us, which is to consider the recommendation of the strategy group on the future delivery of environmental services. Yes, you're right. You're right. Not necessarily in that order. Councillor Ritchie, we haven't quite forgotten.
Thank you. I hope, Chair, 3 quite quick points that I'd just like reassurance on. The first is that I understand that Norse would look for a 10-year contract that would be renewed after 3 years. I don't know if that's after every 3 years, but if that is the case, for that first 3-year period, I would hope that we could negotiate that there was space for having an earlier review, should it be necessary. We are going to make a very big change. If it turns out that with the first summer of collections under the new system, that our streets are full of dump garden cuttings and everything else, or if there are problems with other aspects of the service because of the change that we as a council have made, then I feel that we shouldn't need to wait for 3 years before we can go back and say that we'd like the thing done differently. My second 2 points of reassurance is that there is discussion going on about how we actually make the transition. I fear that although there is a contract with Amy that will run until the day in which it changes to be with Norse, that during the final months of that contract, it may be increasingly difficult to get Amy to attend to things perhaps not to be attended to and so on. And I'd be grateful for assurances that this is something that has been thought of and how the officers are going to deal with that situation. And my third point is that on the day that we suddenly find that our collections are being done by Norse, Councillor Gilport has talked about the positive attitude of Norse staff. Well, a lot of the people who will be collecting our bins are exactly the same people who are collecting our bins at the moment. Hopefully their attitudes will change with a new, more positive management culture that Norse will introduce. But to begin with, there are going to be, we should anticipate teething problems, and we should not anticipate that just because everything is wonderful with Norse in Wellingborough, Wellingborough, that it's instantly going to be wonderful here. I don't doubt that the mix of staff that we have in Wellingborough are much different from the staff who actually do the work here. It's just how you actually create that new working culture that we hope that we will benefit from, and whether that is an issue that has been discussed, whether Norse are aware of the problems that they are perhaps going to inherit.
Thank you for those points. Councillor Poole wants to say something and then we'll come back to you.
Thank you, Chairman. All I will say with regards to Councillor Ritchie's last comments, there are difficulties when any contract ends, but I was brought up to say that there is no such thing as bad staff, only bad management. But apart from that, bullet point 5 of the recommendation, we're talking about 2.5 million created from capital reserves. There is a crossover between Councillor Guildford's portfolio and my portfolio. I listened to what people were saying at strategy, their aspirations for a new build along the lines of Wellingborough. Be assured that I will be liaising with Councillor, what's your name, Guildford, and officers. However, we don't have a wealth of plots to put such a facility. But we'll be looking at it, and it's already been noted, you know, the time scale is such that we are able to spend a couple of months to look at it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Collins next.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to give my support to the recommendation completing this report and talk a little bit about North very quickly. I was lucky enough to be able to spend some time with them after the meeting, and they put a lot of your fears at rest. The first thing that was really clear for me was they really understood Daventry. The operations that they've got across the country are now across the country. They don't take them on lightly. They're not a company that has just literally took one contract, then another, and then another. They're a company that's been very careful at selecting regions or groups that can work for them. And they will also put a lot of upfront costs the same way that we will towards this project. And that also means transferring staff over. So for them, there's two huge losses if this went on. The first one is that they would lose a lot of great people, and the PR for their own company would be massively lost. And the second thing is that they would probably never pick up another contract. So for them, they know how important it is for Daventry. The final thing that was really clear is they understood the issues around the parish question, and I know that will still be debated going forward, but they really do understand it's a liaison process, and it's one they want to actively get involved in. So just thought I'd raise some points.
Thank you very much. Councillor Shepherd.
Chairman, yes, 3 points, if I may. We're looking at a really refreshing change here. We must move away, and I'm delighted to note that nobody's talked about the subcontractors or contractors. We must move away from that concept as a joint venture in which we are as important as partner. We're partners and clients of the joint venture company. We're owners and clients of it, which will transform, I would like to think, our relationship with those who are doing the work, and go to some extent to allay Councillor Richard's fears. Chairman, you heard that Councillor Guildford and I went to Wellingborough. It was particularly appropriate that she and I went to Wellingborough. We know that as members, one of the features of our democratic system at this level is that we all bring various disparate and very, very different background experiences of our lives into the decision-making process. Councillor Guildford, at the top of the tree, was a senior officer. One of her responsibilities was for environmental health and collecting bins. Now, we all know that. Very few, I suspect, know that I, for 3 months, enjoyed a tremendous experience of working at the other end of the scale, collecting the bins on my shoulders. In Bedford, I had 3 months. In those days, we didn't have exciting gap years of travelling to New Zealand or something. We actually did some real work. I was paid £23 a week, and I had to join the T&GW for the purpose, because it was a closed shop. And my only health and safety contribution was a pad, which you put your pad on your shoulder, and you have these metal bins. No question of leaving them at the roadside. You went up the drive to collect those metal bins on your shoulders. And of course, you forget the pad. It was great fun, actually. It really was. I really enjoyed that in Bedford. It was very well paid for 3 months. And I could recognise the depot as I went back to Wellingborough with Joe and saw this depot. And it was, I must say, it was a fantastic experience going to Wellingborough. 2 things that struck me out of that: the cleanliness and pristine and efficiency of the depot, and the new transfer station that they've got there to separate the goods and use them, and the attitude of the ops director that we met. He completely convinced me of the model that Joe identified. It's set out in the strategy group papers. Local control, analogous to in-house services, group support, and a commitment to grow the commercial business. One of our purposes was to test that, and when we went there, that was certainly the case, and I'm sure that the group that are going there tomorrow will have hope to have a similar experience. We have two huge challenges, the depot itself, which we talked about, and transition, which Councillor Ritchie hinted about. Those are challenges. Those are huge operational challenges, fortunately outside of my specific brief. But those, I'm sure, will be worked upon, hopefully well in the next few months. But this is a very refreshing change, and I, of course, thoroughly endorse the proposition.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pritchard, you want to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points, really, to make. Being part of corporate governance committee as well, we've seen quarter by quarter, year by year, that we, in terms of kilograms per household, we've been missing those targets. They remained a red risk. There are financial penalties in place for the current provider, however, not at all incremental. And if you're embarking on a contract and you know what those penalties are in front of you, and there is no incremental penalty, then you would take that penalty in terms, especially if you have multiple contracts around the country. And that's the point, really. It's good to benchmark best practice, and you've done that at Welling Road, but I'm only concerned with Daventry District. And because of that, I want to make sure that those issues, especially in the light of green waste, is going to find its way to landfill sites as well, because not everyone's going to have the uptake in terms of the new green bin, is that there's something built into the contract that we don't miss those targets, and there isn't just the same penalties or what's for the current provider. So that's just one thing I wanted you to discuss. The other thing, smaller point, is just about litter picking, in fact, devolving it back to parishes. Of course, in my ward has 2 parish councils that I attend on a regular basis, and they both said the same thing independently, is that you need some details really, and the contact with the council offices in terms of what does that mean in cold hard cash in terms of parish councils, in terms of what will come back in terms of the service level agreement currently, and how it might continue with a new contract provider. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Guildford, do you want to wrap this up so that we can decide it?
I've got the points here. So, starting at the beginning of the debate with Councillor Randall, yes, understand the reasons you couldn't make the evening such, but Norse, they were very reassuring, and yes, the food waste collection will be looked at in relation to the flats and shelters, etc. Again, I point out the key relationship here. As Councillor Shepherd said, it's not contractor. We're on this cross-party liaison board, and we do own part of it, so we have more control. Again, if take on hearing all your comments about the depot, we're looking at refurbishing the current depot. At the same time, the amendment allows the door to be open, but we've got a very tight time frame here on whether any new facility could be delivered. So we felt best to keep the amendment at the recommendation as it is to enable further negotiations to go forward. But we do need to be realistic, as Councillor Poole said, about costs, etc. I don't even attempt to go into closed churchyards. I think we've closed that debate. Regarding the 10-year and renewing every 3 years, again, I'll refer you back to this liaison board where we do have the control to change things before the 3 years. Let's see, I can't read my own writing here. The transition is very important. Again, I hear the message. We meet monthly with Amy, and the transition and communication with the public will be very, very important, so that I will need close working with Councillor Howard's as well when we come to looking at that change of service delivery. The culture of the staff, as Councillor Poole has already said, comes from the top. Yes, the current staff are demoralised, but they're already, I mean, they still know who I am, coming up to me and expressing thoughts of the change and looking forward to the change remaining and looking forward to coming back to a company that has DDC control in it. So they're already showing, just by, you know, walking down the street, signs of changing culture there. And I just want to finish by saying, as John said, it's not a contract. This is a partnership and we are retaining some control, and I'm very excited about the cross-party liaison board. So I would therefore ask that you accept the recommendations before you.
Thank you very much. That's, I think Councillor Mickle, I missed your hand behind Councillor Guilford.
Oh, sorry.
Say something.
Not that big a one.
I did, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I was hiding behind Councillor Guilford. I'm in agreement with this. I support this. I think it's a good idea. As you might imagine, the mention of the word Wellingborough kind of registers with me. I was at Wellingborough at the time the Norse thing was set up. In fact, I think I was one of the main officer proponents of it at the time. Wellingborough were very happy with it when it got started. The main driver at Wellingborough was not the end of a preceding contract with somebody else. It was previously an in-house service, and the main driver was having to get to grips with the swinging funding cuts of about 5 to 6 years ago. So in the case of Wellingborough, switching from an in-house delivery to a Norse arrangement. As I said, Wellingborough were very happy with it at the time when it started. Obviously not now, but my understanding is that they remain happy with it. It delivered what it set out to deliver in terms of reductions in revenue cost. I think Norse, to be fair to them, found it a little more challenging than they anticipated, generating extra revenue from new work elsewhere, but that didn't affect how they related to the council and the financial contribution that they made to the council. We will find, I think, that we are dealing with a totally different animal than we are with the contractor. It is technically a private company, but it is almost as though it's in the public sector, and it will behave as though it's in the public sector. So members, for example, will have a much more positive and ongoing engagement with the contractor than they would necessarily with a private contractor such as the current firm. So they'd be more inclined to respond to members, to turn up for committees, to answer questions, and so on and so forth. I think one of the issues that Councillor Guilford mentioned, and others have, is the attitude of the staff. At Wellingborough, they thought that was extremely important. So much so that we sent a busload of the staff over to visit 2 other North sites, Great Yarmouth and Waveney, which is Lowestoft. The council's staff management stayed away from that. North management stayed away from that. It was employees meeting employees of 2 different councils. They came back and they were persuaded, they were convinced, they wanted to go into it. And that was one of the key things that persuaded the Wellingborough members to go for it at the time. Having said that, it is a very complex legal process to set this up. The contractual documentation is massive, and there'll be a considerable amount of work to do in putting that in place. And I think in the process for dealing with that, we can deal with a lot of the issues, such as the ones Councillor Ritchie raised, of how we're going to deal with delivery issues in the future, because that will be part of the negotiation. It will be written in. For example, how does the relationship react when, if in the future there's a sudden cut in this council's funding and it has to say to them, I'm sorry, with the best will in the world, we've now got 10% less money than we thought before. How do we react to that? How do they react to that? You have all those things written into the contract, so there is a very complex process. And that negotiation would include things like them giving us method statements, how they would deal with the handover, how they would deal with staff relations in the future. So all of the issues that are concerned members, if we handle the negotiations properly, and I'm sure we will, can be dealt with effectively and can be written to the end result. So I think this is probably a massive step forward for this council, and I'm happy to recommend it to everybody based on my own personal experience.
Thank you very much indeed, and I'm sure those involved will come back to you to share some of your experience and expertise on the subject. I now want to put to the council, please, this recommendation. I'm not going to read it out, it's quite long, but you've seen it and heard the debate carefully about it. So can I see, please, all those in favour of this recommendation? Agreed! It's carried, obviously, but for the record, can I see those again? And Was that again? Yeah. You were abstaining, I think, yes. We've noted that. Thank you very much. That is agreed. We move on. SG 161701, Revenue and Benefit Service Penalty and Prosecution Policy. Councillor Shepherd, please.
Chairman, thank you. Our policy was written following the transfer to the Single Fraud Investigation Service of housing benefit fraud. We no longer are engaged with investigating and prosecuting that. We limit our prosecution in this fraud area to council tax and council tax reduction frauds, of which there are precious little, fortunately. This particular policy has had a thorough review by Corporate Governance Committee on 2 occasions and Strategy Group Chairman, and I commend it to the Council.
Thank you very much. Is there a seconder for that, please? Councillor Poole, thank you very much. Do you wish to speak?
No, thank you, Chairman.
Does anybody wish to speak?
No.
No. Agreed. Can I have your agreement? Agreed. Agreed. No great dissent, so that's agreed. Thank you. We move on. SG 161702, Programme of Asset Disposals. Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you. There's an annual report considered by the Strategy Group to endorse and confirm officers' authority to dispose of properties in the course of the year 1718. In the current year, we managed to dispose of precious little, only a couple of small properties. But in the next year, there are significantly more properties that we see being suitable for disposal, as listed in the report, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Brown, you wish to speak?
No, thank you, Chairman.
Go on. Does anybody wish to speak on that? Councillor Mettleline. Councillor Shepherd, you may sit down.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just intrigued as to why we have to agree this again, because it is exactly the same report, exactly the same properties, more or less, as the council had last year, and the year before that, and the year before that. I had a happy afternoon seeing how far back in time I could trace some of these properties that apparently were given permission to sell. I just wonder how many times we have to give permission to sell a given property. I mean, we've got on the first 2 pages 9 properties, of which 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8. This is 8 of them. This is at least the second, and some of them it's the 4th time they've appeared. So there's that. I'm also intrigued by property number 11, which is a secret. I have no idea what it is, where it is, what it's on sale for, who it's going to be sold for to, and what it's going to be used for. I'm a little unclear how to make any meaningful judgment as to whether I agree with that or otherwise. If number 11 is a secret, number 10 is even more secret if you look at the list.
Thank you. I can tell you that I'm advised that there is a limit to the length of time which we are allowed to allow officers to do it, which is 12 months, so it has to come back every year. Councillor Shepherd.
I'm delighted you clarified that point, Chairman. I was wondering myself, but yes, obviously, as I said earlier, this is an annual report authorising officers to dispose in the following 12 months of the list of properties, claiming minimal site 8 east, minimal site 7, etc., etc. Town centre division sites 1 and 5. We can't dispose of those in 1 year. So it's a matter of governance, if you like, to endorse the authority. Now, as to item 11, Councillor Bickering really needs to look at the strategy group pink minutes and the council's pink minutes of July of last year. And in the absence of a resolution adjourning this meeting to go into private session, we can't really say very much more. But I can assure him that in the pink minutes, to which of course he isn't fully entitled, are all the details to which he alludes, and which will, I'm sure, satisfy him as the probity of strategic disposal of that particular item. But if he insists on hearing the details now, we have to go into confidential session.
I don't think he will.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I don't insist. I'm not sure it's my place to insist anyway. But yeah, I just was doing it this afternoon. I didn't have the pink ones this afternoon.
I'll make sure you get it.
Thank you very much. Can I have a measure of agreement of the acceptance of this recommendation that authority be granted, etc.?
Agreed.
Thank you. We'll move rapidly on. SG 161703, Treasury Management Strategy Statement and Annual Investment Strategy 2017-2018. Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you again. This is an annual report to Strategy Group in a prescribed format. Had we adopted the Mickelwright approach of looking at the report last year, you would have seen very little difference in it. Because our Treasury Management Strategy remains sound, very conservative with small c, and unchanged. There is, as I said, no change from last year. If there had been any change, I would bring it to members' attention. There are, however, two amusing indicators hidden away in the papers. I won't ask them to turn them up. But what we are required to do is indicate what percentage of our revenue spend is funded by investment income. And that's 2%, which is quite a good figure to have. Secondly, we are required to state what element of our council tax revenue call is funded by the commercial receipts we generate through investments of a commercial nature. And that this year is £6.80. Council tax band D benefits to the extent of £6.80 because of the ongoing investment, capital investment, which we are sort of turning into revenue in that fashion. Those are simply two indicators that are in the report this year, which we were not able to, which are not in the same form as last year. Other than that, I recommend the investment strategy to be approved.
Thank you. I need a seconder for that. Councillor Poole doesn't wish to speak.
No, thank you, Chairman.
Can I now put into the meeting that we accept the recommendation? Agreed. Yes, good, thank you. SG 161704, 2017-18 Capital and Revenue Budget and Medium-Term Financial Plan. Councillor Shepherd.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Again, I will give four highlights from this particular report, if I may. This is the final part of the jigsaw, which has been in gestation for a number of months now, leading to the conclusion of the budget recommendation, which we'll come to later tonight. And the highlights from this particular element of the jigsaw are, of course, the 4-year settlement benefit, to which we have alluded in the past. That is the background, one of the key backgrounds to the report. Secondly, I recall cautious approach to our treatment, our budget treatment of non-domestic rates and of new homes bonuses. And our cautious approach to that budgets for limited receipts, which we would almost certainly exceed. For example, in new homes bonus, we budget for 250 new homes, and we will achieve considerably more than that in the year. The final stage, as I mentioned, the budget itself was dealt with at Strategy Group, and we approved an additional growth item amounting only to 54,000. And so this particular report does not take us very much further. It just rounds off the previous budget reports, which of course have been considered by Strategy Group and the Council itself. So unless there are any further questions on that, and I could of course go into considerably more detail on the papers, but if there are any more questions on that, otherwise I invite the advice to be agreed.
Thank you, Chairman. Do you have a second for that? Everybody, Councillor Miller, do you wish to speak?
No, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Patrick wishes to speak.
Yes, Chairman. Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, sorry members to labour the point, but if I could ask members to turn to page 108 of the papers. Once again, poor old white people are being asked to... we're not there yet.
Not there. We haven't got there yet.
Next item. Don't worry, easily done.
Your fair warning, John.
I thought it's this item, Chairman, item B.
Oh, I see what you're trying to do.
161704.
But nevertheless, that will be discussed in detail later. So I'm ruling that now is not the time to discuss it.
That's fine, yeah.
I think we might call that a premature ejaculation.
You might,
Can I have your views, please, on this recommendation? Is it agreed? Agreed. Thank you.
Apart from your comment.
The final, look the word up in the dictionary. The final point I come to is SG 18-1701, the proposed commercial unit at Heartland Business Park business plan. I remind you that this is an originally exempt item, and if you want to discuss the detail, we'll have to go into closed session. Councillor Poole, please.
Thank you, Chairman. This was discussed as strategy on pink papers. I'm happy to send Councillor Micklewright a copy of the pink papers. There's nothing more to say, Chairman. Well thought out. So I would like Council to agree recommendation.
I need a seconder, please. Councillor Howard. Any discussion? No? Can I have an agreement? Agreed. Well, that concludes the consideration of recommendation of the committee. We move on to item 10 on the agenda, which is the annual review of members' allowances. Page 87 in your papers. I'm glad I did that. I have increased its knowledge. Don't worry, don't worry. I was going to ask Simon to open on this, if that's all right. I suppose all of us. Oh, right. Very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. As per normal, this is an item we have an independent panel who comes back each year with recommendations regarding members' allowances. Our normal practice, Chairman, is to set these recommendations. It's of course a matter entirely for members, whether they wish to take any increase or anything like that. It's entirely a personal decision. But obviously we normally just do that as a matter of course, because otherwise one might ask why we bother having an independent panel to look at these things in great detail. So I propose that we resolve the three items before us, Chairman.
Thank you. Is there a seconder to that? Councillor, speak now?
No.
Explain what's going on.
To be honest, Chairman, Councillor Miller had my notes, because that's exactly what I wanted to say. You've also got the recommendations from the panel before you. They are their recommendations, not mine. Colleagues, they are their recommendations. Councillor Miller said eloquently what I was going to say.
Thank you. Councillor Rich.
Thank you, Chair. I accept that there is a certain logic in the recommendations that the independent panel has made. We, however, have got a political decision to take. We have got to take the responsibility for the decision this evening. I feel uncomfortable with this. I still remember that evening, just shortly before Christmas, where we felt that we decided to reduce the benefits that would be payable under the council tax reduction scheme. We know that we're not in a position to give the support to voluntary organisations that we would like to be able to give, and so on. We are across the district. We are seeing increasing numbers of people needing to make use of Citizens Advice Bureau or needing to go to food banks because of changes, not changes that we have introduced, but changes that the government has introduced with universal credit and other changes to the welfare system. Now, I don't want to take for myself the increase that has been proposed. I would like, however, the officers to be asked to set up a system whereby my part of the increase might be transferred to a charity like the Daventry Food Bank or perhaps Daventry Citizens Advice. But instead of doing this just for me, which I could easily do myself, I would like it to be set up so that all members have the option of paying a little bit of the allowance that they get back to support something worthy within the community.
Thank you, but I believe it's the case that all members already have that opportunity. Councillor Osborne.
I was just about to make that point. I watched, and as did many county councillors, I watched the county council saying, no, we can't do the rise, we can't do the rise, we can't afford it, we can't afford it, it's not the right time, it's not good for election. I watched that for 8 or 9 years, along with Councillor Miller, Councillor Hills. And then it came to the point where the allowances were so low at county council, they were just about lower than they were at district council. So they had to be judged independently. There's no point in getting involved in them at all. Just let the independent panel do it, leave it, and that's it. As far as Councillor Ritchie is concerned, I'm pleased that he wishes to do that. And I probably feel sorry that I don't wish to do that. I will take what expenses that are due. And perhaps you're a better man than I, Councillor Ritchie, and I praise you for doing so. If any other member wants to do it, let them do it. They've always had that choice. I know there are members on this side. In fact, there's one sitting not too far away from me that doesn't take any allowances at all. So there are people like that, and it's up to them. Good luck to them. But I support forever the independent panel and what they say, and don't get involved in it. That's my advice.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Ritchie makes the point that we have a political decision in front of us. Surely the point of having an independent panel is to avoid a political decision. I would also suggest that many of us do give to charity. I do so myself, but I choose to do so as a matter of conscience and altruism. I don't make a point of grandstanding about it.
I think that's very unfair, actually, Councillor Brown, to make that point. We are discussing an allowance that's on the formal agenda.
You made the point in public about what was going to do with this money. I'll make my point.
Speaking. That's very unfair to make a grandstand announcement. That my colleague wasn't doing that at all. And now you're saying the same to me, because I choose not to take my allowance either, and I'll be giving that to a charitable cause. Knowing that the people in my ward currently, that are currently homeless, that are being pounded by the effects of the storm today, after being categorised as intentionally homeless, I can actually, it's a decision for me, it's a decision for all members, which is what my colleague made the point also. I think the increase itself is a decision for all of us to make. I just like people, and I welcome your comments also that others and other members here have also made contributions to charities.
Thank you. Councillor Poole.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to support Councillor Brown in his words. I don't have a problem with that. I support orangutans, donkeys walking up steps on the television, but most importantly the RNLI. But, you know, we don't have to shout about it. One of our past colleagues donated copious amounts of money and never said a word, and I think that's the way to do it. Councillor McCarthy, ex-Labour member for Braunston, you know, did the same thing, so it's up to the individual, but we don't have to shout about it.
Yes, but we appear to be doing so. I'm going to rule that out. I don't want any other comments about how wonderful you feel because you give to charity. What I do want is a decision on this annual review of members' allowances. Those in favour? Agreed. Yes. Any against? Thank you. Back to 11, which is the 2017-18 capital and revenue budget medium-term financial plan. To save perhaps some of the interjections, this has to be a recorded vote. So what you think about it will be a matter of record anyway. Councillor Shea.
Chairman, thank you. Yes, it's in the recorded vote, so I deal with this item with a bit more solemnity than earlier. Secretary Pickles decided that this was the appropriate way to deal with the council tax resolution of this item and the following one. This is a compact report that contains a lot of information in a few pages. I will seek to highlight simply 6 points of importance and of course then take any questions at the end if I may. The first point is that at 4.1 we are referring to a debate took place yesterday and we are now, I can now say that the difference between the figure of final settlement that we have in the budget and the actual figure is £93. So there is no need to make any adjustments and I will come back to the appropriate resolution on that later. So that's a non-event. Service areas at 5.1 are slightly differently presented. I'm sure Councillor Micklewright will have noticed that already. That this year, for the first time, we address heads by what's called objective analysis, that's to say service management areas on the chief exec, resources, community and business. That's a new approach. We see at 5.1 a significant improvement on the position of last year. Councillor Micklewright is the hero of the hour because he reminds me to look at the report that came to this meeting last year. And in that report, we saw that the estimated budget surplus for 17-18, that's to say the year that we're about to fix, was estimated at being £260,000. Now the circumstances have improved in the last 12 months, and so we can now see that the surplus is 2.2 million. A significant change due to a number of factors which are, I'm bound to say, not entirely in our control. If they were in our control, of course, we would have budgeted for them a year ago. But there has been a more than anticipated tax-based growth, interest to save from investments, new home bonus has been better than we thought, business rates similarly, and the collection rate has improved. And again, hidden in one of the reports, I can't think which one it was, hidden in one of the reports, I think the one I should have mentioned earlier, is a bonus from wind farms, because they are, the silver lining in wind farms are that we keep the business rates that generate from wind farms. And that is anticipated to get up to £1 million. It's 800,000 in the year that we're talking about next year, business rate from wind farms. And that is a significant bonus. So the operational analysis figure at 5.1 is a significant plus on, or a significant improvement on the position that my predecessor was able to show last year. The council tax figure, I take members by May to 7.2 at page 96, the table there. table on the top of 96. When we talk about the council tax, frankly, I think the easiest figure to understand is the council tax that we ourselves charge to Band D for our work. We are required by the government to bring in special expenses as part of the advertised council tax, which is at the bottom of that column 151. The better figure, frankly, is to take out special expenses, because these really should be parish expenses, I think, but anyway. And the better figure is 137. And that, of course, compares to 133, effectively 132.93 this current year, and the 133 of this current year compares directly with an average district council pre-sector 172 in this current year. So in this current year, we are in the lower part of that. The average is 172, we're at 132. So currently we're in the lower quartile. And of course, whilst we can't say what we will end up being in relation to other districts, I would imagine that we'll be in a similar position next year. So the proposed increase of £5 gives us those figures. At page 99, Order stating wearing her statutory hat, and I'm assured that she has, despite her absence, been working from home and has considered these papers and can quite properly make the statement that is attributed to her on page 102, that this is a proper and adequate budget. The devil's in the detail, and I'll address Councillor Patchett's point in a minute, but there are a couple of highlights I'd like to bring to members' attention at 104 and 105. At 104, on the heading accountancy, you see the revenue interest earnings at 255,000. Going down that page, you see quite a considerable contribution by land charges of 82,000, a profit there. Over the page at 105, we can see the very significant contribution made to the general fund by the significant capital assets that we have under the heading operational services. You can see there the gross income of 2.7 million, nets down to 1.7 million. Tremendous asset from the investment properties that you see listed there. The one I think that is a challenge, which we're well aware of, and I'm sure I understand where I know where it's being addressed to, is of course the Abbey, which is not generating any profit to it, not even washing its face in that. But that of course is always has been really a challenge and will continue to be, and I'm sure that we'd like to think that will turn out in course. And of course, going down on environmental services, we see highlighted the environmental services contract, and that figure will be similar next year, go up by an element, but of course in the following year we anticipate, and subsequent years we anticipate that going significantly higher. And finally, on the headlines in terms of contributions, it's interesting to see the crematorium giving us an income of nearly 400,000, netting 226,000. So those, I think, are interesting plus points. Still on the detail, and it's been a learning curve for me, understanding how special expenses are calculated. The starting point, of course, is a closure of a churchyard, usually is a closure of a churchyard. The parish council resolving not to do anything about it, the legal obligations then comes to us, cost comes to us, which is then recharged back to the parish exclude special expenses. We have a historic formula for calculating special expenses in relation to Reading, Longmutley and Byfield. The historic formula cannot be altered. It is to do with the AMI contract. We take the view that the cost of grounds maintenance is 25% of the entire contract, and the view was taken some time ago that the three areas here that we see identified have a specific percentage element of that 25%. In Byfield, the element is 1.7%. And so the recharge and the special expenses of Byfield is 1.7% of 25% of the big contract. And that comes out this next year to 9375. And of course it bears no relation, because we can't make any assessment, there's no relation to what might be thought of the actual cost on an hourly basis or whatever, or cutting the grass or doing whatever else is required by the churchyard. We are stuck with that assessment and that formula for achieving the calculation of the special expenses, and that is immutable. But of course it lasts until the end of the AMI contract, and we had discussion earlier on as to what can then happen. Yes, I think those are the highlight points that I have made. If asked, and I was asked on Radio Northampton last week, I think, for some key points. Actually, I was asked, why aren't you doing a catering? Why aren't you not putting the budget up? The answer is that we have throughout our, there are 2 points to answer that. Throughout our approach to finance in recent years, it has been very prudent and very cautious. We had a time in the late 90s when there was a political football and a match in this chamber, a football match in this chamber, as to who could propose the lowest council tax rate. And that causes a lot of trouble. So we set a prudent and small and very modest overall rate increase to preserve our position and improve it as time goes on. The second reason is that the government assumes that we are increasing our council tax by £5 band D, and that's the basis of its calculation on the basis of the 4-year commitment. And the third reason is that although we are identifying surpluses in this coming year, the projections do not last beyond 2020 for that purpose, and we do see a significant increase in the cost base. Great uncertainty about the funding streams that are coming from government, and for that reason it is entirely prudent to set the budget in a very modest increase fashion in this way. Chairman, those are the points I would like. There's a modest point I would like to make. Oh yes, I'm reminded of some there's a housekeeping point which I should have mentioned earlier. You've got on your paper, on your tables, some replacement pages of Council Tax Resolution paragraph 4, pages 121 and 144. You were invited to replace the papers in your pack with the papers that are on the table. I will give £5 to the chairman as a charity if anybody could spot the difference. That's meant to be a joke. If you really want to know what the difference is, you've got to go to band C on the second table, where the figure in the report is 988.32 and also 48.65, whereas in the previous original report it's 948.33 and 48.64. Basically, there are some rounding issues of dealing with pence in the reports. Was it 12 decimal points? Some of the computers go to a lot of decimal points, and when you come to rounding, they have different languages to speak.
12 in one system and 18 in the next.
They get 12 decimal points in one system, 8 decimal points in another, and they sometimes end up with an oddity in terms of text, but that's a technical point. I think I covered it.
Thank you. Those pages actually come in the next item, not this one.
Yeah.
Oh, good lord.
Do we have a seconder for this? Councillor Miller, you wish to speak?
Oh yeah, sorry, Chair, well, sorry, I do also need, I did mention initially that item 4.1 is a non-event. That means that if we go back to the resolutions on page 91, we can delete proposed resolution 5 entirely. So we can resolve, I only ask you to resolve items 1 to 4.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Happy to second the 4 recommendations resolved items now as detailed by Councillor Shepherd. I just want to say a few things. Councillor Shepherd mentioned wind farms. Many of us in this chamber will know a few years ago, whilst we always knew there's going to be a nice benefit financially from the wind farms, there was obviously a lot of controversy. This council did its very best to represent those communities who have major concerns over the wind farms. In fact, I think most of the wind farms that we've agreed in this district came through on appeal rather than agreed in this council chamber. But I think that's important because I don't think members of the public would be very happy in those areas if we started talking boastfully about the monies we get now from the wind farms. That's never our intention. We obviously oppose those applications. That's a political point I'd like to make. Also, Chairman, I think we should be very proud in this council, since, as Councillor Shepherd touched upon 1999 and 2000, where some silly stuff went on before then about the council tax levels of this council. We have been very prudent in the way we manage our budgets, and I think part of the reason is how you set the budgets. I know some councils set a very optimistic budget, but we've always been very prudent about the figures we use. So these underspends and all the way down to the budgeting process, where we take a very prudent line, and that pays off, because if things do go wrong, as they often do, you have got some leverage or coverage there to actually cover those points. Not all councils do that, and I think also when we come down to the council tax levels, we are below 25% of districts and boroughs. We offer very good value for money, actually. I'm not sure members realise we offer over 80 essential services as a district council, according to the district council network, out of 130 odd altogether. So we account for about 9% of the total council tax bill. That's what we do as a district. So we actually do offer very good value for money, and probably are the most efficient part of that bill in terms of what we offer and the amount of money we pay. And obviously, to maintain that, you've got to have this sort of very stringent process about how you carry on year after year. And Councillor Shepherd now is our member gatekeeper on all this. I'm sure he'll do a very good job, and he's been around a long time. Our longest serving member job, I didn't realise how long it was until the other day. I got to 1984. You begin the medal soon, sir, for your longevity to Daventry District Council. But what I want to say, though, seriously, is that this is actually very important about being consistent, about maintaining those budgets in a consistent way, and making sure we run this council prudently, but at the same time we are also very ambitious. We have ambitious plans, and the way we manage our budgets enables us to do this. And I have to say that I think it's important we make sure that members of the public realise, I accept the politics in all this, by the way. I do accept politicians will have different priorities, and that's quite right, depending which party you're in and all the rest. But I think what we're trying to do is make sure we build for the future and have economic growth and build for all people in this district, not just the few, or as they were saying, all people in this district. And that's what we try to do to the best of our ability. I just think it's also important, Chairman, that when you look at our levels of services and for the price we actually offer, I think our staff deserve great credit. I think we are an excellent council in many ways, and I think we should always remember that as members, whichever party you're in. And it's always nice when you hear opposition members recognising that. You know, we don't always agree on things, which is part of politics, but it's nice when actually opposition members do recognise the good stuff that does go on, and we can agree to disagree on other stuff. That's the way life works. But I think everyone in this chamber represents the public in the way they see best. And whilst that's a great thing about councils, we all come with different backgrounds, as Councillor Shepherd mentioned. We all have the intention to do good in our communities, both individually in our own areas, but also collectively for the district as a whole. And I think everyone in this chamber should be proud of the fact we have a council that maintains really good services at a low cost. And long may that continue. And we've got challenges ahead. We know that's going to be coming. And I think there'll be a debate soon coming up about the future of local governments in this county. And I think it's important for all of us to realise, whatever option is chosen eventually, that we do what's best. I think the biggest challenge in local government at the moment is social care and health. That's a demand-led area where obviously at the moment all county councils are facing major challenges. I think it's also important to realise though that the NHS is involved in that process. I think we have a duty as councils, both district and boroughs and county council, to make sure we represent the local taxpayer in the best way we can moving forward. One of the things I'm not very keen on, Chairman, I can say this personally, I'm not a council position, I'm not keen on council tax being used as a tool to cover social care costs moving forward. That's both unfair and unsustainable. So local opinion, I think it's important to have local opinions, and obviously what we must try and do is influence government on that point, because I think that is unsustainable. There's other ways you can do that. You have to understand there's a big demand building up, but there's other ways that money can be found. And it's not for me to tell government, but I can actually put my opinion in. I think that this council might want to do that at some stage, because it is important we have a council tax level at this level, which people should be happy with, because it's very good value. But obviously, the county council is facing these demands, and obviously they have to put their council tax up. But that will not solve the problem longer term. It's not going to solve the problem. We've got to find a solution to the longer term problem, and hopefully that will be coming forward in the next year or so. It might be a year or so, maybe a year maybe. Within the next year, we might have to find a solution for the future of this county and what we can offer. So I just want to say, Chairman, I think I'm very pleased that members can support this tonight, and hopefully we can continue as a council to deliver the services we do at the best possible price, maintaining our long-term economic plans. And those are very bold and very brave, but actually they're very good for the people in this district. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any other contributions to this discussion? In that case, can I call you to decide on the 4 resolutions before you? I won't read them out, they're in front of you. Resolution Part 5 has been deleted. It's a recorded vote, and so please, when your name is called, answer either approve or disapprove.
Councillor Auger?
Approve.
Councillor Brown?
Approve.
Councillor Carter? Councillor Chandler?
Approve.
Councillor Connors?
Approve.
Councillor Cribbin?
Approve.
Councillor Evans?
Approve.
Councillor Fraser Allen?
Approve.
Councillor Frenchman?
Approve.
Councillor Guildford?
Approve.
Councillor Griffin?
Approve.
Councillor Hill?
Approve.
Councillor Amy Howard? Approved. Councillor Wayne Howard?
Approve.
Councillor James?
Approve.
Councillor Lomax? Councillor Micklewright?
Approve.
Councillor Miller?
Approve.
Councillor Diana Osborne?
Approve.
Councillor Steve Osborne?
Agreed.
Councillor Parker?
Approve.
Councillor Patchett?
Agreed.
Councillor Poole?
Agreed.
Councillor Pritchard?
Approve.
Councillor Randall? Approved. Councillor Ritchie?
Abstain.
Councillor Shepherd?
Approve.
Councillor Smith?
Approve.
Thank you very much indeed. During that debate, our attention was drawn to the amount of information in this paper, reminding me of the lectures I used to give on the difference between information and data. We move on to item 12, which is the council tax resolution. Again, Councillor Shepherd, please.
Chairman, thank you. I'm corrected, of course, that the replacement pages to which I referred earlier are in relation to this item, not the previous
Councillor
one.
Shepherd, sorry, before you launch, I guess you're not going to do it in under 4 minutes.
Yes, I will.
But your colleagues might not. This council meeting either has to finish at 9:15 and we postpone the rest of the agenda, or we approve an extension.
Agreed.
Which would you like to do? Okay, I'll take it that you'll agree that we can go past the deadline. But you can still meet your challenge of doing it in under 3 minutes.
Go on, John, you can do it. This, of course, is the legal manifestation of what has previously been agreed. It has nothing to the principles. It just puts what we have previously agreed into the appropriate local government legal language. The only other point I want to make was 4.5. We are told the county council, some members here, did meet today and did, I believe, set their preset at that figure. So the figures are correct as are recited in the advice, and I invite the council to approve the appropriate council tax resolution as recited.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Stephen Osborne. You wish to speak? No. Does anybody wish to speak? No. Councillor Ritchie.
I was only going to say, Chair, that I suspect that one reason why there is a lack of speakers in this particular resolution is that I suspect that many of us are not totally confident about the basis of the figures we're looking at. I may be the only one. I was going to suggest that while clearly we have got to transact this business tonight in the course of the coming year, a members' briefing session on some of these issues would be useful.
Yes. Councillor Brown.
Just very briefly, Chairman, as ward member for Weedon, the Eagle Eye amongst us will have noticed that 62% lies in the parish precepts. This is due to the ongoing dispute between the parish council and the MOD regarding the mound. We as ward members had hoped that this would be avoided when the MOD tabled an offer to cap the mound back in November. Sadly, the dispute rumbles on, and we hope that that will be concluded very soon.
Thank you very much. You're explaining why I thought it might just be a typographical error or a misplacement of a decimal point. Any other points? Again, this is a recorded vote. I'm going to make it easier for you since you had difficulty last time. When your name is called, please say either for or against. Agreed.
Councillor Walker.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Carter.
For.
Chandler.
For.
Councillor Thomas.
For.
Councillor Cribbin.
For.
Councillor Evans.
For.
Councillor Fraser Allen.
For.
Councillor Brenton.
Agreed.
Councillor Guildford.
Agreed.
Councillor Griffin.
For.
Councillor Hills.
For.
Councillor Amy Howard. For. Councillor Wayne Howard.
For.
Councillor James.
For.
Councillor Owen.
For.
Councillor Mickelroy.
For.
Councillor Miller.
For.
Councillor Diana Osborne.
For.
Councillor Steve Osborne.
Agreed.
Councillor Parker.
For.
Councillor Patrick.
For.
Councillor Paul.
For.
Councillor Pritchard.
For.
Councillor Randall. For. Councillor Ritchie.
For.
Councillor Shepherd.
For.
Councillor Smith.
For. Sorry. Thank you very much. We move on to item 13, which is the pay policy statement. Please note that it says this is a statement for approval. That's a good thing.
Thank you, Chairman. We are fulfilling our normal practice of publishing an annual pay policy statement to accord with statutory requirements. After consultation with Unison, a cost of living award of 2% has been added to the pay scales for 17-18. Otherwise, basic terms and conditions remain the same. Members will recall the pension scheme discretion agreed previously as additional benefits to the RGPS, denoted in Appendix A. It is an equalities issue to show a consistent and rational approach to pay and to be open about pay and reward systems in this council. I ask you to approve the statement. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Before we proceed, do you have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Paul. I'll come to you in a moment.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I can just draw members' attention to page 137 and item 2, the second paragraph of item 2. There's actually a typo there. The incentive for giving a supplement is applied to this pay band such that no employee under the age of 25 is paid less, that should be over the age of 25.
Thank you. Councillor Paul, did you want to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think our officers do an absolutely sterling job. I would like to find some way, shape or form where we can increase their wage or increase their benefits, purely and simply because of the difficulty in obtaining staff, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rich.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question. Looking at that final paragraph under section 2. Sorry, 137. I recall that some time ago it was suggested that perhaps that the district council might ensure that all its employees were paid the living wage. This was before the present government introduced its particular concept of what the living wage might be. We were told at the time that to do so, it was going to cost hundreds of thousands because of the importance of maintaining differentials that everybody would have to the same sort of increase. Does this paragraph mean that back at that time, you were simply wrong?
That's an interesting question. Do we have an answer?
Yes, I remember that well, Chairman, but at the time, although I wasn't party to it, I understand there was a problem with unison, but perhaps Tony can enlighten us.
Thank you, Chairman. Just before I do that, I'm afraid I've got to point out another figure in the report. It's again on page 437, and under item 3, basic pay arrangements, the Chief Executive Officer is paid in the salary range of 104,519. It's a corrected figure, otherwise that's correct. Moving on to the point, I think the first point I would make is that what we're looking at is a statement. It's not a matter of policy about changes here. This is a statement of fact. But going to the issue about the potential introduction of the living wage, the circumstances were different in that the national living wage is something that is imposed on us. The living wage would have been a choice for us, and that would have meant negotiations with staff and trade unions who were not keen to enter that debate at that particular time. Thank you.
So that's the answer to the question, were we wrong last time?
Yes, Chairman.
Yes, Chairman.
Thank you. Any further discussion? In that case, can I ask you to resolve that the attached pay policy statement be approved? I think that's approved. Yes. Thank you. Any again? No. Thank you very much. Any urgent business? Thank you very much. In that case, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your tolerance and your good behaviour. Just before I declare the meeting closed, I do still have some tickets for the concert.